Chapter 873. Yun Jian did not come here to poach Peter. She came here to watch Yun Yi's competition. Moreover, Yun Jian did not even know that Peter would be here. However, Yun Jian did not expect that she would be able to poach Peter over just like that. However, she had to admit that this trip was really worth it. After all, Peter was an international master thief. He was one of the top figures in the entire world. For such a big shot like Peter to join the kosher mercenaries, it was also a way to expand the kosher mercenaries' strength. After all, those old guys had been eliminated. At this juncture, expanding the strength of the kosher mercenaries was a path that Yun Jian had to take. The competition has started, Ning Lanlan said to Yun Jian excitedly. Of course, she was not excited because the competition was about to start, but because Xiao Zhiming was by her side. Ning Lanlan was dragged by Yun Jian to watch Yun Yi's competition. As Ning Lanlan Sr., Xiao Zhiming naturally would not leave. Yun Jian could also feel Ning Lanlan's admiration for Xiao Zhiming, so she did not say anything. After Xiao Zhiming came over, Shan Zihao followed as well. Yun Jian might not hate Xiao Zhiming, but Yun Jian did not like to see Shan Zihao. However, since he was shameless enough to stick to her, Yun Jian could not do anything about it. Peter stood rooted to the spot dumbfounded. No matter how he racked his brain, he could not figure out the relationship between Yun Jian and Gusha mercenaries. It was undeniable that Peter was a little slow. He stood there thinking for a long time, before he suddenly remembered. Yun Jian wanted him to join the kosher mercenaries, because she wanted him to join the kosher mercenaries. However, Yun Jian wanted him to look for Snake. Lizard Snake. Lizard was the leader of the kosher mercenaries. What did Yun Jian mean by asking him to find Snake? Lizard? Peter held his forehead with both hands. He shook his head and couldn't stop thinking. What was the relationship between them? If Yun Jian could send him to the kosher mercenaries, it meant that her position in the kosher mercenaries was not low. However, if she could order the leader of the kosher mercenaries, Snake, Lizard, to do things for her, it meant that her position was higher than Snake, Lizard's. If Yun Jian's status was higher than Snake, Lizard's, then there was only one possibility. Then she is. Just as Peter thought of this, he suddenly covered his mouth and widened his eyes in horror. Could she be the legendary person? Just as Peter was thinking about this, Yun Jian, Ning Lanlan, and the others arrived at the arena. Cheers had already begun to erupt from the competition grounds. The intensity of the competition was no less than that of the junior division. Although there were more participants in the junior division than the senior division, Yun Jian darted out from the crowd. She saw Yun Yi from afar at first glance. Yun Yi was the same as Su Haokol. Both of them were handsome and tall young men. Hence, Yun Jian could see them from the crowd. The moment Yun Jian walked over, Su Haokol saw her first. Su Haokol happened to be standing beside Yun Yi. When he saw Yun Jian coming over, Su Haokol even poked Yun Yi, who was still looking around. Yun Yi followed Su Haokol's gaze and saw Yun Jian standing in the crowd looking at her. Yun Yi turned around and smiled at Yun Jian. Bro, do your best. Yun Jian mouthed silently to Yun Yi. Chapter 874. Yun Yi and Su Haokol were both very good at speaking English. This time, Yun Yi and Su Haokol were the representatives of the first senior high school to participate in the competition. Therefore, Yun Yi's English was better than Su Haokol's. Therefore, Yun Yi and Su Haokol got very good results in the first round of the competition. After the second round of the competition, the winner was decided. Without a doubt, Yun Yi was the top student in the middle school. Yun Yi got the same result as Yun Jian. The only difference was that Yun Jian was the top student in the middle school section, while Yun Yi was the top student in the high school section. Su Haokol also got a good result. Although he was not as good as Yun Yi, he still got the 10th place in the whole high school, which was quite good. After the two competitions were over, the students went back home. Lawson wanted to go out with Yun Jian, but he was invited by the school to be the referee, so he had to go back home after the competition. Today was Wednesday, and it was not the weekend yet. Lawson was embarrassed to ask Yun Jian to play truant with him, so he had to give up the chance to compete with Yun Jian again. Before he left, however, Lawson reminded Yun Jian again and again that they would meet again next time. When he was about to leave, Lawson said to Yun Jian in English, "Yun Jian, the next time we meet, you must let me win." Next time, he did not know if there would be a next time. In spite of it, Yun Jian smiled and nodded with pressed lips. Amen. In the end, Yun Jian added, "The next time we meet, you will still be defeated by me." Yun Jian's words were harsh, but this time, they were very encouraging to Lawson. He laughed and said goodbye to Yun Jian. As for Ning Lanlan, her new friend, she exchanged contact information with Yun Jian and promised to go out together next time. Yun Jian had a good impression of Ning Lanlan, so she was happy to be friends with her, so she nodded and agreed. In the end, Shan Zihao watched as Yun Jian took the bus back to Longmin No. 1 High School. Since he had a good impression of Yun Jian, he could only watch her leave. However, Shan Zihao was not willing to give up just like that. It was rare for him to like a girl, so how could he give up before pursuing her? Moreover, Xiao Jiming was his buddy, and Xiao Jiming was close with Ning Lanlan. Now that Ning Lanlan was close to Yun Jian, as long as he held on to Ning Lanlan, he was not afraid that he could not catch up to Yun Jian. A week passed by quickly. It was Friday in the blink of an eye. Yun Jian carried her backpack and walked out of the school. In the past, with Chen Xinyi and Zhang Xiaofeng accompanying her, the journey from the teaching building to the school gate was filled with laughter. However, without the two clowns, Yun Jian felt empty in her heart, and it was not a good feeling. However, when she recalled Chen Xinyi's father inviting her to his house for dinner last week, Yun Jian felt relieved. This meant that she would be able to meet Chen Xinyi. Yun Jian then hurried home. She would not be having dinner at home today. Yun Jian returned to Dong Ruan's villa, tossed her backpack into her room, and went downstairs. She was going to Gu Yunjian's house for dinner today. As Gu Junjian and Qin Yiru's wedding was getting closer, Qin Yiru would definitely move to Gu Yunjian's house if they got married. Hence, Qin Yiru had already started moving her things. They had already agreed on tonight. Qin Yiru brought Xiao Yunju and the other two to Gu Yunjian's house, intending to enjoy a table of delicious food. Chapter 875. Yun Jian had just reached the middle of the staircase when she felt Ce standing behind her. "I'm going to Officer Ji's house for dinner." Yun Jian could feel Ce standing behind her. She pursed her red lips and said, before Gu Junjian and Qin Yiru got married, Yun Jian had always addressed Gu Junjian as Officer Gu. After all, once Gu Junjian and Qin Yiru were legally married, it would only be reasonable for Yun Jian to address Gu Junjian as Dad. Yun Jian knew that Ce didn't know that they were going to Gu Yunjian's house for dinner today. Hence, she turned her head and looked at him with her big black eyes. "Mom told us that we'll go to Officer Ji's house for dinner after school." Yun Jian added, "My brother will be there too. Adam and Lan Su will be there too. You can come with me." There was no one at home. Everyone was rushing to Gu Yunjian's house for dinner. Yun Jian didn't expect Ce to be back at this time, because he was usually at an Hun organization from Monday to Friday. Ce's honest voice sounded. His handsome face was slowly leaning towards Yun Jian. "So you're saying that there's no one at home now?" Ce's warm breath surrounded Yun Jian. This made Yun Jian feel a tingling sensation. Yun Jian didn't think too much about it. She turned around and was about to go downstairs when she said to Ce, "Let's go over quickly too. My mom said that we should come early tonight. Otherwise, the food will get cold." Ever since she bought phones for Qin Yiru and Yun Yi, it was very convenient for Yun Jian to contact them. Upon hearing Yun Jian say that there was no one at home, Ce's eyes flashed. Just as Yun Jian was about to turn around and head downstairs, Ce suddenly grabbed her wrist. Yun Jian was stunned, but she didn't think too much about it. "Let's hurry over." Before she could finish her sentence, Ce suddenly pulled Yun Jian over. He pulled Yun Jian to the stairs and blocked her with his muscular body. Like a Capitan, he pinned Yun Jian against the wall of the stairs. Yun Jian was shocked and wanted to say something, but Ce ruthlessly squeezed her words out. Her lips were tightly shut as she tossed and turned. Ce was panting heavily as he kissed Yun Jian. Yun Jian shuddered from the kiss. Coupled with Ce's steady breathing, Her emotions were in a mess. Just as Yun Jian was about to suffocate, Ce let go of her. At the same time, Yun Jian was looking away from the corner of her eyes. Ce was tall. He was one step lower than Yun Jian, but he was still about half a head taller than Yun Jian. Ce extended his slender arms to hold Yun Jian's head, and gently moved Yun Jian in front of him to look into his eyes. Xiao Jian, what should I do? You're so beautiful. I don't want anyone to see your beauty. Ce looked at Yun Jian affectionately. After a while, Ce held Yun Jian's head again and inched closer. Yun Jian knew that Ce must have known about Shan Zihao's love for her. Ce was not around when it happened, but he would know if Yun Jian made any noise. When their lips were about to touch, Yun Jian felt Ce's breath filling her. He looked at her with his dark eyes and said, I really want to imprison you under me. As he spoke, he pressed his lips against hers. Chapter 876. Yun Jian's eyes instantly lit up. At the same time, Ce's mischievous hand had already gently slid across Yun Jian's flat stomach. Their lips were still pressed together. Ce's lips carried a faint fragrance. Yun Jian didn't hate it. Instead, she was looking forward to it. However, when Ce's hand reached under Yun Jian's clothes, Yun Jian could no longer pretend that she didn't see anything. She quickly reached out and pressed down on Ce's mischievous hand. Her eyes widened. However, this didn't seem to be able to stop Ce's hand. Ce's hand slid past Yun Jian's clothes and broke through Yun Jian's resistance. He slid along Yun Jian's beautiful body and slid into her bra. His hand covered her left breast. Yun Jian's entire body went numb. Just as she was about to pull his hand away, she felt Ce's lips on hers become even more unbridled. Yun Jian's lips were sealed. Her lips couldn't move. She pressed against Ce's chest with her hand, as if she wanted to push Ce away so that his hand would leave her body. However, Ce didn't release his hand. Looking at Yun Jian in front of him, he felt that she was even more alluring. His large hand even caressed her a little and gently grabbed her. Yun Jian had never been so close to a certain part of her body. She couldn't help but groan. However, her eyes were wide open. The blush on her face was a sign of her shyness at this moment. Just as Yun Jian was about to suffocate, Ce finally let go of Yun Jian's lips. However, at the same time, he used his other hand to grab a certain part of her butt. Yun Jian's entire body shuddered as she felt the soft sensation of her forbidden area being touched. Yun Jian almost groaned again. Let go. Let go. In the next second, Yun Jian, who had regained her right to speak, slapped Ce's hand a few times. However, to Ce, it didn't hurt at all. At this moment, Ce had already leaned over to Yun Jian's ear. At this moment, one of Ce's legs was shorter than Yun Jian's, while the other leg was on the same position as Yun Jian's. Even so, he was still taller than Yun Jian by half a head. At this moment, Ce had already bent down and pressed his lips against Yun Jian's earlobe, where her collarbone was. Xiao Jian, you're so beautiful. Ce moaned softly. Right after that, he pressed his lips against Yun Jian's neck even more brazenly. His domineering and possessive voice rang again. Next time, you're not allowed to be so close to other guys. If they pester you, you're not allowed to be within 3 meters of them either. As he spoke, Ce's handsome lips curled up slightly. If anyone present saw how Ce looked right now, they would definitely be mesmerized by his demeanor. His flawless and absolutely possessive handsome face was enough to make people infatuated just by recalling his handsome face. If you don't listen to me next time then. Ce had already moved his lips back to Yun Jian's earlobe. With a smirk, he uttered his final words. Then I'll make you mine right away. Right away. Right away. God knew how much he wanted this girl in front of him. However, once he recalled his promise to Qin Yiru, it looked like he was going to have to break his promise. It was impossible for him to wait until Yun Jian came of age. Yun Jian was dazed by Ce's words, but her cheeks were burning. She had never been treated like this before, but if someone else had told her this, Yun Jian would not have felt anything. Chapter 877. In spite of it, Ce's naughty hand was still glued to Yun Jian's plump breasts when he said that. His other hand was on one of her buttocks. Both of his actions made Yun Jian blush uncontrollably. Strangely, this new and entirely different feeling did not make Yun Jian feel disgusted. Instead, she was looking forward to what he was going to do next. Yun Jian was shocked by her own thoughts. Shaking her head, she bit her lip lightly and tossed the thought to the back of her mind. Xiao Jian, are you back? Why didn't you close the door? What if a stray dog came in? Yun Yi's voice came from the door. It was a villa and was surrounded by places that only the rich could afford to live in. However, there were plenty of stray dogs and domesticated dogs nearby. Some time ago, because the owner of a nearby villa forgot to close the door, a stray dog ran into his house. After the stray dog ran into his house, the owner of the villa returned home and saw it. Naturally, he wanted to drive the stray dog away. However, the dog became arrogant when it was chased by the owner and bit him. The owner went to the hospital to get a rabies vaccine. In the end, he received news that the stray dog died not long after. The reason was that the stray dog had contracted rabies. Rabies was a very scary virus. When one was bitten by a dog and was not treated in time, and the dog happened to be infected with rabies, the person who was bitten would be infected with the disease. Of course, those who went to the hospital for a rabies vaccine before the disease acted up were usually fine. Once it did, however, there was no one in the world who could be saved, let alone getting a rabies vaccine. Some people did not have a strong immune system and died from the rabies vaccine after being bitten. Moreover, people who were infected with rabies would usually die within a few months. The owner of the villa was bitten when he chased the dog away, so he went to get a rabies vaccine immediately. However, the prevention was not in place, and he contracted rabies as well. He died in less than a month. The incident stirred up a storm in Longmen City. Those who heard the news were terrified. Therefore, recently, it was popular to close the door after returning home. Therefore, when Yunyi came back and saw that the door was not closed, she said, "Don't worry." Suddenly hearing Yunyi's voice and seeing Siyi's hands on her unspeakable parts, Yun Jian's face turned red, as if it had been dyed with blood. Her face was so red that she couldn't bear to let go. Siyi looked at Yun Jian. His eyes were filled with obsession, making it impossible for anyone to ignore his existence. "Xiao Jian, aren't you at home?" At this moment, Yunyi had already walked in from the main entrance. Siyi also let go of her hand immediately. It was an exciting game. She was so close to being seen by Yunyi. Yun Jian's eyes were unbelievably red. Yunyi was already at the door. He did not suspect anything when he saw Siyi and Yun Jian standing on the stairs. "Xiao Jian, why aren't you answering? The door has to be closed in time. There are a lot of stray dogs now and rabies is at its peak," Yunyi said. Chapter 878. "I know, Ga. I'll be more careful next time." Yun Jian's voice was soft and carried a sense of tenderness. Of course, this was only Siyi's opinion. Yun Jian lowered her gaze as well. Yun Jian was good at adjusting her emotions. She recovered quickly and looked at Yun Yi, saying, "Gu, let's go to Officer Ji's house for dinner today. Mom mentioned it before. Do you know?" Other than the blush on Yun Jian's cheeks, she had completely recovered. It was unknown if she had covered it up well, or if it was natural. "I know. Mom already called me," Yunyi replied and patted his pants pocket, indicating that there was a phone inside. Qin Yiru and Yunyi now had the phones Yun Jian bought for them. Yunyi could contact Qin Yiru normally even if she stayed in school. "I'll put my bag in my room. Let's go over quickly. Don't let them wait too long," Yunyi said and headed upstairs. When they passed by the stairs where Yun Jian and Siyi were, Yunyi glanced at Yun Jian suspiciously before looking at Siyi. Something felt off about the atmosphere. In spite of it, Yunyi did not dwell on it. He bypassed Yun Jian and Siyi naturally and went to the second floor. It was only when Yunyi went to the second floor that Yun Jian breathed a sigh of relief. She then turned to go downstairs, ignoring Siyi for the time being. He was getting bolder. It was the same when they went for a barbecue last time. It was the same at home now. If she continued to take it, would he not? Yun Jian did not continue thinking about it. She stepped on the stairs and smoothed her clothes gently. "Xiao Jian." Watching Yun Jian run to the first floor, Siyi's starry eyes flashed. In the next second, he called out to Yun Jian in a gentle and soft voice. Ce admitted that he had never spoken to anyone in such a gentle tone. He would kill anyone who pissed him off. It was definitely not a casual remark. This could be seen from the things that had happened back then. However, he was more patient and attentive to Yun Jian than he had ever been. He could treat Yun Jian with the most gentle side. Seeing that Yun Jian was ignoring him, Ce went downstairs with a smile. Ce's legs were long, so he caught up to Yun Jian in a few steps and grabbed Yun Jian's wrist. After grabbing Yun Jian's wrist, he moved his hand down and interlaced his fingers with Yun Jian's. It was then that an awkward cough came from the stairs leading from the first floor to the second floor. Cough, cough, cough. It was obvious that Yun Yi had seen Ce's actions from the stairs. Just as Yun Yi's cough was heard, Yun Yi was already on the first floor. He did not look at Ce and Yun Jian but coughed twice before telling Ce, "Brother-in-law, let's go." He was thrilled to be called brother-in-law. So what if Ce was older than him? In the end, he still had to be called brother-in-law by him. Hee hee. Yun Yi snickered and pretended to be serious as he walked out of the house. When Ce heard Yun Yi call him brother-in-law, he was in a good mood again. Then, he held Yun Jian's hand and walked out. Gu Yunjian's house and Dong Ruan's house were in different places. However, Gu Yunjian's house and Dong Ruan's house were both villas. Not everyone could afford to live in these villas. However, it was a long journey from Dong Ruan's house to Gu Yunjian's house. Chapter 879. Gu Junjian also lived in a villa area. The villa area here was much larger than the villa area where Dong Ruan's family lived, and it was surrounded by trees. At a glance, other villas could not be seen. There were also some overall facilities. Compared to Dong Ruan's villa, it was much better. If one had to ask why, it was because the villas here were only sold to people who had made contributions to the country. Perhaps it was an order from the higher-ups. So the land in this area could only be sold to people who had made great contributions to the country. Gu Junjian was undoubtedly one of the best candidates. In addition, Gu Yunjian's family was very rich. Therefore, it was very reasonable for him to want to buy a villa here. "Are you sure it's here?" Yun Yi was shocked when she arrived at the gate. The iron gate in front of her was already as big as the school gate. Looking in from the gate, the villa was filled with flower beds and surrounded by green trees. Looking from the gate, she could not see the villa at all. However, this also reflected that Gu Yunjian's family was extraordinarily big. Perhaps compared to Dong Ruan's family, Gu Yunjian's family was many times bigger. Therefore, Yun Yi was immediately stunned. Yun Jian and Ce had seen villas that were hundreds or thousands of times better than this. So naturally, they were not surprised. "Hello, are you young Master Yun Yi and Miss Yun Jian?" At this moment, an old man sitting in the guardhouse at the gate walked out and asked Yun Jian, and Yun Yi respectfully. This old man had been guarding the gate here for decades. He had been here since Gu Junjian bought this villa. This old man's surname was Ding. Uncle Ding had been guarding here since Gu Junjian, and his ex-wife got married. Before Yun Jian and Yun Yi came, Uncle Ding had been instructed by Gu Junjian not to block Yun Jian and Yun Yi at the gate when they came over. "We are." Yun Yi nodded politely at Uncle Ding. "Then come in." Uncle Ding quickly ran over to open the door. Once the door opened, Yun Jian and the other two walked in. There were many flowers and plants in the villa. It took about 5 to 6 minutes to walk from the gate to the villa. "This is it." Yun Jian narrowed her eyes. Then she, Ce, and Yun Yi walked into the house. The gate of the villa was not closed, so Yun Jian and the other two were able to walk in easily. Just as they entered, they saw Qin Yiru coming out with 2 plates of dishes. When she saw Yun Jian and the others, she could not help greeting them. "Ae, Xiao Jian, Xiao Yi, you're all here. Sit down, it's time to eat." As she spoke, Qin Yiru carried the remaining 2 plates of dishes to the dining table. There was a long dining table in front of them. Xiao Yinju, Ce, Lan Su, Adam, and Mo Sun were already seated. Even Gu Junjian was already waiting there. Seeing Yun Jian and the others, Adam even moved his lips. "They're here, they're here. They're finally here. Let's eat." Shuang had already returned to An Hun group. Unlike Adam and Mo Sun, Shuang was An Hun's social leader. All of Hun's missions and external dealings were handled by Shuang in place of Ce. Compared to Adam and Emo's son, Shuang did not have much free time. Chapter 880. The group sat down around the long table. The table was rather long, but not ridiculously long. It was set up so that one could reach out and take a bite of the food. Even if there were a lot of people, they could still sit down. Right, Xiao Yi? Xiao Jian said that you got first place in the foreign language competition in high school too? Qin Yiru asked Yun Yi when everyone was seated around the table. Yun Jian had already told Qin Yiru about what happened this Wednesday. The foreign language competition was announced by the school out of the blue, and Yun Yi was a boarding student, so he had just returned home. Therefore, it was Yun Jian who told Qin Yiru that Yun Yi had won first place in high school. Hearing that her son and daughter had won first place in the city's foreign language competition in middle school and high school respectively, Qin Yiru was overwhelmed with pride. As their mother, how could Qin Yiru not feel proud? Although she had heard from Yun Jian that Yun Yi had won first place in high school's foreign language competition, Qin Yiru wanted to hear it from her son in person. Amen. I got first place in the competition this time, Yun Yi answered when he heard his mother's question. Xiao Jian and Xiao Yi are smart kids indeed. Gu Junjian guffawed, the pride on his face unmistakable. Although Gu Junjian was not Yun Yi and Yun Jian's biological father, both children were actually much closer to Gu Junjian than their biological father, Yun Yi. Gu Junjian was especially nice to Qin Yiru. It's all because of the children's hard work. It's my blessing to have these two children. Qin Yiru chuckled with a hand covering her mouth, but the smile on her face did not diminish. Compared to Qin Yiru and Gu Yunjian's friendliness, Adam never stopped talking. This was mainly because Qin Yiru's cooking was too delicious, so Adam didn't even have the time to stop and speak. Is there anyone who eats like you? Your legs have just recovered. If you become crippled, I won't be responsible for helping you. Lan Su was sitting beside Adam. Seeing the way Adam ate, she couldn't help but say something to him. I'm not. My leg still hurts. I got hurt because of you, so you have to support me. When Adam heard that Lan Su wasn't going to support him, he didn't even have the energy to eat the drumstick in his hand. He immediately threw it into the bowl. That aggrieved look made it seem as if Adam was a little wife who had been bullied by Lan Su. Come on, eat your food. You even wanted to fight with me yesterday. Where did that energy go? Emo-san glared at Adam and blindly spoke the truth. Heh. Adam also laughed awkwardly, looking as if he was a little embarrassed. Chi. At this moment, the sound of several sports cars drifting by suddenly sounded at the door. Someone came in. After all, Uncle Ding was guarding the door, so ordinary people shouldn't be able to come in. However, the sound of these sports cars drifting by and stopping at the front door of the villa was so eye-catching. Who came? I'll go take a look. Gu Junjian frowned slightly. Then he stood up and was about to walk out. Okay. Qin Yiru nodded. The moment Gu Junjian stood up from the dining chair, a group of people suddenly walked in through the door of the villa. The leader was a man in his 20s. The man had dyed his hair red, yellow, blue and green. His short hair had all kinds of colors. It was obvious that it was dyed. However, if one looked at it directly, they would be able to see that the man in the lead had similar eyebrows to Gu Junjian. Chapter 881. Gu Junjian was slightly stunned when he saw Gu Xian. After hearing Gu Yunjian's words, coupled with Gu Yunjian's reaction, and the fact that Gu Xian and Gu Junjian looked like they were carved from the same mold, everyone present had an idea of what was going on based on these few points alone. This Gu Xian was most likely the son of Gu Junjian and his ex-wife. Qin Yiru recognized him at first glance. Moreover, Qin Yiru had heard from Gu Junjian that his son with his ex-wife was called Gu Xian. Now that she heard Gu Junjian call the man with dyed red, yellow, blue and green hair Xianer, she could immediately confirm that he was Gu Yunjian's son. Yun Jian could naturally guess as well. However, at this moment, Yun Jian narrowed her eyes. The atmosphere became more and more oppressive. At this moment, Gu Xian, who was standing there, suddenly let out a cold chuckle. This chuckle, coupled with Gu Xian's hair, gave people the first impression that he was a hooligan that was not to be trifled with. By the time everyone turned to look at Gu Xian, he was already slowly making his way over. Gu Xian not only dyed his hair stylishly, but he also dressed very fashionably. Qing Yiru's heart skipped a beat when she saw his tattered pants and his roguish sneer. Junjian, this is Xian Xian, right? Qing Yiru turned to ask Gu Junjian to ease the awkward atmosphere. Qing Yiru had already changed her way of addressing Gu Junjian. She no longer called him Officer Gu. Qing Yiru simply wanted to use Gu Junjian's introduction to greet Gu Xian. For Qing Yiru, it was her principle to behave properly. Gu Junjian nodded in tacit agreement. Little Xian, this is yours. Gu Junjian had just finished his sentence when Gu Xian interrupted him. Haha. What? You're not happy to see me back, right? You didn't even inform me in advance that you're getting married. Did you? Gu Xian's voice was a little strange. It was filled with mockery and ridicule. Gu Junjian did not tell Gu Xian that he was going to get married. That was because Gu Junjian had always known that his divorce with his ex-wife was a huge blow to Gu Xian. That was why Gu Xian chose to study abroad. That was why Gu Xian would rather stay abroad than spend the new year with his biological father. However, Gu Junjian wasn't trying to hide it. On the contrary, Gu Junjian didn't know how to break the news to Gu Xian. Of course, during this period, Gu Junjian had been thinking about how to break the news to Gu Xian that he was going to marry another wife. That was why Gu Junjian kept delaying it. However, on the day of the actual wedding, Gu Junjian would of course inform his own son. However, from Gu Xian's point of view, the meaning of this was very different. When his father divorced his mother, it was done without a word. He didn't care about him at all. When parents divorced, no one was more upset than the child. Regarding this matter, Gu Xian had always held a grudge in his heart. However, what did he see when he came in today? Gu Junjian was happily chatting with his new wife. Did he ever think about his own son? Xianer, it's not what you think. Gu Junjian still wanted to say something, but before Gu Junjian could finish his sentence, he was interrupted. Gu Xian shouted at Gu Junjian emotionally. If it's not what I think, then what is it? Gu Junjian, you've been seduced by a vixen, right? You don't even want your own son anymore. As Gu Xian spoke, he pointed at Qing Yiru and shouted at Gu Junjian. Chapter 882. Just as Gu Xian spoke up to this point, a bowl was suddenly slammed onto the table. When the bowl was slammed onto the table, it immediately made a loud noise. Bang! Everyone present was frightened by the loud noise in front of them, and their souls shrank fiercely. Of course, this excluded Ce, Adam, Mo-sun, Lan-su and Yun-yi. As for Gu Xian, and the group of people who came in with Gu Xian, they were all shocked. Gu Xian didn't come back alone. He came back with a group of friends. There were about 3 or 4 of Gu Xian's friends, and one of them was a tall and strong foreigner. The others were from country Z. These were all Gu Xian's friends and classmates from his overseas school. When he heard from others that his father was getting married, Gu Xian practically rushed back from abroad with a few of his good buddies. However, just as Gu Xian accused Qing Yiru of marrying him for Gu Yunjian's money, Yunjian slammed the bowl in her hand onto the table with a loud bang. It had to be said that Gu Xian had crossed Yunjian's bottom line. And Yunjian's bottom line was Qing Yiru. If Gu Xian hadn't insulted Qing Yiru, then Yunjian naturally wouldn't have done anything. However, the problem was that Gu Xian had actually accused Qing Yiru of being a woman who got close to Gu Junjian for money. This was something that Yunjian couldn't tolerate. Just as Gu Xian and Gu Xian's friends were stunned by Yunjian's actions, Yunjian's sharp words rang out. I dare you to say that again. Yunjian's words carried a power that made it impossible for people not to be afraid. But at least Gu Xian and Gu Xian's friends were shocked. After coming back to his senses, Gu Xian looked at Yunjian, who stood up from the dining chair. He pretended to be bold and looked back at Yunjian. Gu Xian gritted his teeth. He immediately looked at Yunjian with an imposing manner and replied, Who are you? What does my family's business have to do with you? Gu Xian hadn't been obedient all these years. Gu Yunjian's divorce with his ex-wife was a huge blow to him. So Gu Xian had been living a leisurely life abroad these years. In his free time, He had befriended a group of hooligan-like buddies. Therefore, Guxian's tone was a little boastful. I'm not anyone. Your family's future has nothing to do with me, and I'm not interested in your family's future at all, Yunjian said. Yunjian paused. Then her eyes suddenly became sharp, and those sharp eyes carried an irresistible courage. But the person you insulted just now is my mother. I don't care about your family's business, but if you insult my mother, then I won't allow it. Yunjian said word by word. Her words carried an irresistible authority. Even Gu Junjian wanted to speak up for Yunjian. Others might not know, but how could Gu Junjian not know? Not only did Yunjian have several identities now, more importantly, she was the boss of the internationally renowned Kosha mercenaries. How could the boss of Kosha mercenaries, the mother of slaying God, the world's top secret agent, be someone who lacked money? Who knows if it's an insult or not? Maybe your mom got close to my dad for money. Guxian hated Gu Junjian now, so he did not have a good opinion of Yunjian and Qin Yiru. Xianer, don't spout nonsense. Xiao Jian is your younger sister from now on. Gu Junjian could not help growling at his son. Chapter 883. However, Gu Junjian did not yell at Guxian, because in Gu Yunjian's opinion, he had already let his son down. Gu Junjian himself admitted that he had been busy with military affairs, and had paid little attention to his family. Gu Yunjian's ex-wife had run away with another man and divorced him because of this. It was also because of this that Guxian deeply hated his biological father, Gu Junjian. Therefore, when Guxian wanted to study abroad, and when Guxian wanted to do a series of things, including making a group of bad friends, Gu Junjian did not participate too much. This was because Gu Junjian felt that he had let Guxian down. Even when they were young, Gu Junjian had always listened to Guxian, and had never insulted him. If it were not for Guxian's outrageous words, Gu Junjian would not have spoken to Guxian in such a tone. All these years, his father had never insulted him, but because of Qin Yiru, he had insulted him. Guxian looked at him in disbelief. You've changed. You never said that to me before. Guxian looked at Gu Junjian with hatred. He was not even willing to call him dad. To Guxian, Gu Junjian had never cared about his family before. After his mother cheated on him, Gu Junjian divorced his biological mother without saying a word. Since he was young, he had been more miserable than others. Therefore, Guxian felt that he should enjoy Gu Yunjian's apology. He should make Gu Junjian regret it. In fact, there were many people who had the same idea as Guxian. Guxian had turned himself into a hooligan. Or perhaps it was because he had fallen from grace. In fact, he had only done this for one thing. He wanted Gu Junjian to regret it. He wanted Gu Junjian to see what he had done in the past. He wanted his son to become the kind of person he should not be. Guxian had become like this because of Gu Junjian. Haha, as expected, it's just like what others say. When a mistress enters the family, everything is decided by the mistress. I won't acknowledge such a shameless vixen. I don't have a sister. My parents only gave birth to me. Guxian roared at Gu Junjian. His eyes were filled with hatred. Shut up. After Guxian roared, Gu Junjian did not wait for Yunjian to make a move. He grabbed the bowl in his hand and threw it at Guxian. This was the first time Gu Junjian had been so angry and hit Guxian. Guxian's words completely enraged Gu Junjian. Guxian called Qin Yiru a vixen. To be honest, Gu Junjian could not hold it in anymore. Qin Yiru was the person Gu Junjian had decided on. In other words, Gu Junjian had already decided that Qin Yiru would be the person who would share the joys and sorrows of his life with him. Therefore, even his son, who he had always tolerated, would not allow him to insult her like this. Ping 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 pang pang. The bowl was thrown at Guxian in an arc Guxian did not dodge. He watched as Gu Junjian threw the bowl at him, and finally, the rice in the bowl was thrown at him. The person who was smashed was stunned for a moment. He had always thought that his father, Gu Junjian, would tolerate him in the future because of his guilt. However, ever since he walked into the house and saw Gu Junjian chatting and eating with Qin Yiru and the others, Guxian felt that he no longer belonged to this family. He felt that he was very pitiful and miserable. Gu Junjian, you will regret this. Guxian glared at Gu Junjian fiercely. After he finished speaking, he ran out without even looking at his friends. Chapter 884. In that situation, Guxian's friends didn't say anything. After all, it was their family matter. However, when they saw Guxian rush out without looking back, Guxian's friends also ran out. It wasn't easy for the child to come back. Even if he said something unpleasant, you shouldn't treat him like this. The child is still young. Some things can be discussed slowly. Qin Yuru's hands were tightly clasped together. She stood up hesitantly and spoke to Gu Junjian. Qin Yuru was very kind. Even if Guxian had insulted her and called her a vixen, Qin Yuru wasn't angry. Of course, Qin Yuru wasn't the kind of person who liked to be bullied. However, she understood how big of a blow a child's parents' divorce was. Back then, Qin Yuru didn't want to divorce Yun Gang because she was afraid that Yun Jian and Yun Yi wouldn't be able to accept it. If one were to ask Qin Yuru why she understood this kind of rebellious mentality, it was because Dong Ruan's parents had divorced long ago. Dong Ruan often complained to her about this. When Dong Ruan's parents divorced, it was a big blow to Dong Ruan and Si Yi's mother. Especially Dong Ruan. She studied so hard when she was young because she wanted to be strong. However, Qin Yuru knew that Dong Ruan's parents' divorce was no different from the sky falling down on her. Especially after Dong Ruan's parents reorganized their families, Dong Ruan became an outsider in that family. Although Dong Ruan's parents were rich, and Dong Ruan had never lacked financial love, to Dong Ruan, without family love, it was as if she had lost everything in life. Qin Yuru didn't want Yun Jian and Yun Yi to become like that, so she didn't divorce Yun Gang. However, since Yun Jian and Yun Yi didn't think that way, and Yun Gang cheated, Qin Yuru decided to go all out and divorce Yun Gang. I'll go check on him. Qin Yuru was overflowing with maternal love. She was a kind person, so when she saw Guxian running out, she stood up and chased after him. Gu Junjian held his forehead with his hand, a look of despair and pain on his face. It was not that Gu Junjian did not expect Guxian to hate him, but what could he do? What could he do? Seeing Qin Yuru run out, Yun Jian was worried that she would be bullied by Guxian. Therefore, Yun Jian also stood up. She said to the few people present, and then followed Qin Yuru out. I'll go take a look too. After Yun Jian finished speaking, she left the dining chair and walked out of the door. Yun Jian knew that it would be very awkward for Gu Junjian to go out in this situation, especially when Guxian was still angry. However, if Qin Yuru went out alone, Yun Jian was afraid that Qin Yuru would be bullied. Just as Yun Jian stood up, Si Yi stood up at the same time. He did not say anything and followed Yun Jian out of the door. On the other side, Guxian simply rushed out of the door. Unknowingly, it had started to drizzle outside the door. Guxian plunged into the rain, but he did not feel cold or chilly at all. He had been waiting for his mother to come back, to reconcile with his father, and for the family to be reunited. However, all of this was shattered. When he saw Gu Junjian happily with Qin Yuru and the others, he suddenly felt that he could not fit in with this family. Was his existence superfluous? Xian. A few of Guxian's friends rushed out and grabbed Guxian. At that moment, Guxian was on the verge of collapse. He looked like a dying man on the brink of death. Chapter 885. Xian, it's not easy for you to come home. Don't be angry with your father. Come home with me, okay? Qin Yuru said gently as she walked over. As she spoke, Qin Yuru even reached out to help Guxian. However, Guxian saw Qin Yuru's hand coming towards him from the corner of his eye, and his heart was filled with hatred. Get lost. Hypocrite. Who allowed you to call me Xian? Disgusting, don't touch me. As Guxian spoke, he reached out and slapped away Qin Yuru's hand that was reaching towards Guxian. Qin Yuru sincerely reached out to help Guxian, but who knew that when Guxian slapped her, Qin Yuru would take 2 steps back. It took her a long time to stabilize her feet, but because her left foot accidentally twisted, she fell into a puddle. Ah! Qin Yuru shrieked before her feet gave way, and she fell into a puddle that was filled by the drizzle. You vixen! Who told you to be hypocritical and bully Xian? Go to hell! A guy standing next to Guxian saw Qin Yuru fall into the puddle, so he directly walked over and lifted his foot. It looked like he was going to kick Qin Yuru. This guy from Guxian was dressed like a rich man, and the arrogance on his face could not be described with words. Arrogant, conceited, and conceited, these were all enough to describe this guy. Shenjie stopped. Seeing that his friend was about to step on Qin Yuru for him, Guxian looked at Qin Yuru, who fell to the ground, and looked at Qin Yuru's face that was slightly old due to overwork, and he unconsciously shouted. However, Guxian's friend did not listen to Guxian's words, and this guy called Shenjie still stepped on Qin Yuru. F***CKU mistress bitch. Go to hell bitch. Shenjie did not listen to his advice, and when Guxian reached out to stop him, Shenjie's foot had already landed on Qin Yuru's body. Qin Yuru had already accidentally fallen into the puddle, and now she was still angry after being kicked by Shenjie. At this time, Yunjian just happened to see this scene from the door, and she did not expect to see this scene at all. When she saw Shenjie kick Qin Yuru's abdomen, Yunjian growled, "Mom!" and immediately rushed towards Qin Yuru. Gu Junjian, who was sitting in the room, was still holding his head with an embarrassed expression. At this time, he suddenly heard Yunjian's growl, and he suddenly stood up. "What happened? What happened?" Gu Junjian said as he stood up from the table, and he rushed towards the door. Gu Junjian believed in his son, Guxian's character. Although Guxian's words were unpleasant, he would not do such a crazy thing. Gu Junjian quickly thought of Guxian's brothers. Could it be on this side? Shenjie kicked Qin Yuru's abdomen fiercely. Shenjie wanted to lift his leg to kick Qin Yuru again, but he was stopped by Guxian. F***CK, Guxian, what are you doing? Why do you care about this mistress? He might as well kill her directly. I'm trying to help you. Shenjie said confidently. Guxian did not know why, but when he looked at Qin Yuru's face, which was obviously overworked and slightly old, his heart tightened. What the hell? He actually pitied this mistress who was about to steal his father away. However, Guxian could not help but take 2 steps towards Qin Yuru. Chapter 886. Qin Yuru was already old, and after being kicked by Shenjie, she was a little dizzy. Because of overwork these years, Qin Yuru's body had some sequelae. However, Shenjie didn't care about this. For a rich young master like him, he could kick whoever he wanted, and he never cared about it. And now, Shenjie watched as Guxian extended his hand to help Qin Yuru up. He stood behind Guxian and laughed wildly, and even mocked Guxian. "Guxian, are you stupid? That's a mistress. She wants to marry your dad and take away your dad's love. And you actually went to help her. I helped you kick her twice, and that's already letting her off easy you." At this time, Guxian had already helped Qin Yuru up. However, at the same time, Shenjie, who was laughing wildly behind Guxian and mocking Guxian for helping Qin Yuru up, suddenly felt a gust of wind coming from behind him. In the next second, he felt as if someone had kicked him hard in the waist. By the time Shenjie reacted, the heavy kick had already landed on his waist. Being kicked in the waist from behind, Shenjie instinctively wanted to stand firm. However, the powerful force behind the kick sent Shenjie crashing to the ground. Guxian was supporting Qin Yuru, and Shenjie had his back facing them. Only the other 2 buddies of Guxian were watching from the side. However, at this moment, they saw a horrifying scene. They saw Yunjian madly rushing towards them. She lifted her legs, and those long legs seemed to have a huge amount of magic, running towards them at the speed of an arrow. Then at the moment when she was close to Shenjie, Yunjian suddenly jumped on the ground with her right foot. She used the momentum of her right foot to sweep her body at a 90 degrees angle. At the last second when she was close to Shenjie, she switched from her right foot to her left foot. Her left foot suddenly stretched out, and with a charge, Yunjian's left foot fiercely kicked Shenjie, whose back was facing her. Shenjie was kicked almost at the same time. His whole body trembled as he took 2 steps forward. His legs went soft, and Shenjie actually knelt down with his face facing down. With this kneeling, Shenjie's upper body couldn't support himself, and he also fell to the ground like a frog. However, in front of Shenjie was a bumpy cement ground. Because of the rain, The bumpy cement ground was filled with a large amount of muddy cement. As for Shen Jie, he directly crashed into the cement pit with his face down. However, Shen Jie quickly reacted. In any case, Shen Jie was also a young master who practiced taekwondo and sanda. When he reacted, he quickly stood up. Yun Jian suddenly lifted her leg, and with a horizontal kick, Shen Jie was once again kicked into the cement ground. But this time, Shen Jie's face was facing the sky. But because of the previous kick, Shen Jie's entire face was now covered with muddy cement. He couldn't even open his eyes. However, just as Shen Jie was about to get up again, Yun Jian's pair of jade feet fiercely stepped on Shen Jie's abdomen. Not only that, after Yun Jian stretched out her foot to step on Shen Jie's abdomen, she also heavily shifted her foot twice. Shen Jie felt that his internal organs in his abdomen were about to be shattered by Yun Jian's kick. He couldn't open his eyes, and could only let out a scream. Chapter 887. Shen Jie could only hear Yun Jian's arrogant words that could not be ignored. Because his entire face was soaked in the muddy water, Shen Jie could not open his eyes. He could only hear Yun Jian's crisp and arrogant words lingering in his ears. However, Shen Jie could feel that the foot on his abdomen was as heavy as 1,000 pounds. It was so oppressive that he could not even breathe. Let go. Shen Jie was suppressed by the intense pain, and did not pay attention to Yun Jian's words. As he spoke, he reached out to grab the foot that was stepping on his abdomen. However, the moment Shen Jie reached out his hand, Yun Jian lifted her foot slightly. The moment Shen Jie was about to grab her foot, she lifted her leg slightly to the side, and avoided Shen Jie's grab. Just as Shen Jie heaved a sigh of relief, and was about to stand up, Yun Jian's foot once again stepped on Shen Jie's abdomen. Ouch! Shen Jie could not help but let out a painful howl. Who was it? Who was so daring to step on him again and again? Shen Jie was the son of a rich family. He had never been treated like this before. Therefore, he immediately roared with hatred. What are you doing? F***CK, come and help me. Guxian, I was helping you beat up the mistress just now. The word mistress made Yun Jian furious. Gu Junjian had already divorced his ex-wife. Therefore, no matter legally or morally, Gu Junjian was still single. Qin Yiru had also divorced Yun Gang. If the two of them were to be together, it would be perfectly justifiable. There was no such thing as a mistress. Moreover, if Gu Junjian was not single, Qin Yiru would not agree to be together with him. Therefore, when Shen Jie once again insulted Qin Yiru as a mistress, Yun Jian once again lifted her foot and kicked down. Shen Jie was kicked by Yun Jian, and his whole body sank deeper into the cement ground. At this moment, Gu Junjian had already rushed over. What's wrong? What just happened? When Gu Junjian saw Guxian helping Qin Yiru up, he immediately rushed over to help Guxian hold Qin Yiru's hand. Qin Yiru took a long time to react. I'm fine. Qin Yiru slowly regained her senses. After she regained her consciousness, she did not even think of complaining to Gu Junjian about Guxian. At this time, Shen Jie's insults came again. F***CK, what are you doing? Hurry up and drag this damned woman out for lousy. Damn it. Yun Jian stepped on Shen Jie's abdomen. At this moment, Shen Jie was as miserable as he could be. However, looking at Yun Jian's horrifying appearance, Guxian's other 2 or 3 friends did not dare to go up and pull Yun Jian to help Shen Jie get out of this predicament. Guxian, on the other hand, ran over after helping Qin Yiru up. Then he looked at Yun Jian, paused for a moment and shouted, "Stop fighting!" Ha! Guxian's shout was met with a cold snort from Yun Jian. You think we should stop fighting just because you say so? Who do you think you are? Yun Jian asked out of the blue. However, just as she finished speaking, Yun Jian raised her foot and kicked Guxian's abdomen fiercely again. Does it feel good? That's how you kicked my mother just now. Yun Jian's gloomy voice sounded. Her words were mixed with a sneer that could not be ignored. Shen Jie was a person who cared a lot about his reputation. At this moment, he was kicked by a girl and struggled desperately to no avail. This was extremely embarrassing for Shen Jie. F***CK off. I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill you. Shenjie shouted in disdain. Ce, who was standing at the side, heard this and was about to make a move, but Yunjian had already made her move. She took out a butterfly knife from her pocket and stabbed it into the soil next to Shenjie's cheek. When Shenjie's face moved, he felt that if he had turned his head to the side, the butterfly knife would have pierced his head. Suddenly his whole body trembled. Chapter 888. As long as Shenjie moved his cheek to the left, he would be able to feel the cold butterfly knife sticking to his face. He trembled and his whole body went soft. Shenjie was born into a wealthy family. Even in the whole of country Z, the Shen family was considered one of the top aristocratic families. Kicking Qin Yiru like he did just now was something that Shenjie often did. For a rich man like Shenjie, he usually dressed like a ruffian and looked down on ordinary people because of his prominent family background. Therefore, people like Shenjie would usually bully the nannies in his family. Punching and kicking were common. However, because the Shen family offered a high salary, the nannies were not willing to leave. This was also a fact. The evil behavior that he developed when he was young caused Shenjie to start hitting Qin Yiru when he had the chance. Moreover, fighting with people in school was also a common thing for Shenjie. Even so, Shenjie had never been threatened by a woman who stepped on the ground. What was more frightening was that this woman really dared to use a knife. She wanted to kill him. Shenjie was a rich man's son. Although he would usually get injured when he fought with others, he had never experienced the despair of walking on the edge of death. Of course, perhaps in Shenjie's opinion, getting injured in a fight was a very cool thing. Just as Shenjie was thinking about this, Yunjian's frivolous voice sounded again. You can die now. After speaking, Shenjie felt the butterfly knife that was stuck to his face being pulled out from the ground by Yunjian. Shenjie's face was covered in mud. Even his eyes were stained with mud. Therefore, he could only feel Yunjian's actions. However, when he heard Yunjian's voice, Shenjie's heart jumped wildly. She was not joking. She was serious. At this moment, Shenjie could feel that Yunjian was holding the butterfly knife above his head and was about to chop it down on his head. No, I was wrong. I shouldn't have done this. I was wrong. Shenjie's voice trembled as he begged for mercy. His arrogance completely washed away. The arrogant Shenjie just now had become like this. Yunjian merely scoffed. Xiaojian don't. Just as Yunjian's knife was about to land on Shenjie's face, Qin Yiru's shout rang out. Yunjian retracted the knife in time. Yunjian had never thought of killing Shenjie. Moreover, Yunjian was an advanced special forces soldier now, but they could not kill people recklessly like this. If that was the case, there would be no law in this world. Yunjian wanted to teach Shenjie a lesson. At the very least, it had to be the kind of lesson where they wouldn't dare to be arrogant anymore. Before Yunjian made a move, Qin Yiru's voice rang. Xiaojian, don't do this. Put the knife away. You're part of the military now. Don't tarnish the military's reputation. Qin Yiru panicked when she saw Yunjian pointing the knife at Shenjie. So she went over to snatch the butterfly knife from Yunjian's hand and pulled Yunjian to the side. Shenjie breathed a sigh of relief when Yunjian was pulled away. The foot that exerted gravity on his stomach disappeared. Shenjie seemed to have been reborn. He lay on the ground and took a few deep breaths. As Qin Yiru pulled Yunjian away, Guxian heard a few thunderous words. Guxian turned to Gujunjian immediately. Dad, she's from the military. He asked unwillingly. Chapter 889. Guxian's words sent chills down Shenjie's spine, who was lying lifelessly on the floor, as well as Guxian's other two buddies. Yunjian was from the military? While Guxian and his men were still in shock at Qin Yiru's words, Qin Yiru had already pulled Yunjian to the side. Xiaojian, I'm fine. I'm still strong. It's okay, it's okay. Shenjie had kicked her hard just now, and it was painful, but Qin Yiru still bore the pain and consoled Yunjian. Qin Yiru was behaving this way partly because Shenjie was Guxian's buddy after all. Guxian was quite a pitiful child, and it was apparent from what happened just now that Guxian was not a bad person. When Shenjie kicked her just now, he even stood up to stop it. Qin Yiru did not like people like Shenjie. People like him were practically thugs. He was the kind of person that people would say, whoever hung out with him would be led astray. Gu Xian hung out with these buddies purely because he wanted to be noticed by Gu Junjian, so that Gu Junjian could fulfill his responsibility as a father. In spite of it, Gu Junjian seemed to have gotten the wrong idea. He felt that he had let Gu Xian down, so he ignored Gu Xian even more after that. As a result, Gu Xian became more and more depraved and had befriended a bunch of gangsters now. Even when he was overseas, he got into fights every day. The group of people he befriended was no different from Shen Jie's group. They were people who would even beat up women and children. The other main reason was that if Yun Jian killed Shen Jie because of this, she would not be able to avoid jail time, even if Yun Jian was a member of the Advanced Special Forces. Qing Yuru's proudest thing was to have Yun Jian and Yun Yi as her children. How could she possibly watch Yun Jian do something foolish? In spite of it, Qing Yuru did not know that Yun Jian did not want to kill Shen Jie just now. She only wanted to intimidate him. Of course, that was enough to scare Shen Jie half to death from Yun Jian. Qing Yuru's persuasion was effective on Yun Jian, as Yun Jian calmed down right away. Mom, you don't have to do this. A murderous look flashed across Yun Jian's cold eyes as she looked at Qing Yuru. She then paused and looked at Shen Jie, who was lying on the ground. My mom forgave you today, so I won't pursue the matter. If you dare to lay a hand on my mom again, even the Jade Emperor won't be able to stop you from meeting the King of Hell. After Yun Jian finished speaking, she turned and helped Qing Yuru into the house. As they walked, Yun Jian asked, Mom, does it hurt? Come in quickly, I'll take a look. After Yun Jian left, Ziyi did not. His tall figure was even more conspicuous than the others present. Especially his handsome face and the murderous look on his face. Everyone felt that he was handsome no matter how they looked at him. Shen Jie had already been helped up by the two brothers who were too stunned to help. Gu Xian and Gu Junjian were still standing in the same spot. Being supported by Yun Jian, Qing Yuru finally felt the pain coming from her waist. Shen Jie had kicked her there, and she felt that her body was about to fall apart. However, after taking 2 steps, Qing Yuru turned around. She looked at the few people who were still standing in the rain and urged, hurry up and go into the house. It's still raining. Nothing is more important than your health. After Qing Yuru finished speaking, she was helped into the house by Yun Jian. After hearing Qing Yuru's words, Gu Xian knew that Qing Yuru's words were meant for him. Was she concerned about him? Chapter 890. Gu Xian had never experienced a mother's love before. After Gu Xian's mother gave birth to Gu Xian, she left Gu Xian at home and went out to meet people dressed to the nines. Even so, Gu Xian did not resent his birth mother. There was no other reason other than the fact that she was his birth mother. No matter how badly she treated him, he could only accept it. Ever since Gu Junjian divorced his birth mother, Gu Xian was disheartened by them. But Gu Xian still held on to a tiny bit of illusion. What if his parents remarried one day? Then, like other parents, they would pamper and spoil their children, even if they were not pampered or spoiled, no matter how hard their days were. As long as they cared for him a little, that would be enough. In spite of it, Gu Xian actually felt a hint of kinship from this woman, who was about to become his stepmother. Was he hallucinating? Even his birth parents had never given him any kinship. How could he feel kinship from someone else? Xian stop fooling around. Your auntie is a kind person. She's not like what you said. That was Xiao Jian just now. Since you asked, I won't hide it from you. Xiao Jian is part of my military. Gu Junjian did not plan to hide this from his son. In spite of it, after Gu Junjian said that Yun Jian was part of his military, Gu Xian's indignant groan rang again. What did you say? She's really part of your military? As he spoke, Gu Xian's indignant voice rang again. You actually let her join your army? I wanted to join your military back then, but you didn't allow it. You even said that I wasn't capable enough. What about now? Have you really been bewitched? You're letting a little girl like her join the military. You didn't even want me to join back then. Gu Xian raised his voice. Gu Xian also had the heart to protect his country. When he was young, he took Gu Junjian as his role model. Ever since he was young, He wanted to be a soldier, but Gu Junjian did not give him the chance. Gu Junjian was the leader of the advanced special forces. At the same time, he also had the authority to recruit outstanding youths from all over the country. Gu Xian wanted to join the advanced special forces and become a member, but Gu Junjian did not give him the chance. Therefore, when Gu Xian found out that Yun Jian had joined the military, he was furious. Although Yun Jian was so fierce just now, Gu Xian didn't think that Yun Jian was that capable. In other words, Gu Xian himself was a martial artist. He knew that Yun Jian had some skills, but he would not admit that Yun Jian was better than him. Under such circumstances, how could Gu Xian not think about it? Why would his father rather let Yun Jian join the advanced special forces than let him join? If this wasn't favoritism, then what was? Shut up. Xian heir, what do you know? Gu Junjian gritted his teeth in anger. He wanted to tell him everything, but the words that were about to leave his mouth were stopped. Isn't that so? If you weren't bewitched, why would you let her join the advanced special forces? Gu Xian raised his voice again. At this time, Shen Jia was already being helped up. Why? You want to know why, right? Gu Junjian couldn't hold it in anymore and cried out in pain. Because she's better than you. She's stronger than you. Whether it's strength or ability, she's better than you. Although Gu Junjian didn't want to belittle his own son, he had to admit it. Chapter 891. It was rare for Gu Xian to hear his father use such words against him. Most importantly, he had never heard his father praise someone in such a tone before. It could be said that in Gu Xian's mind, his father was someone who would never praise others. Therefore, Gu Xian was very surprised. Forget it. There's no point in talking about this anymore. Let's go home. Gu Junjian had a headache from arguing with Gu Xian. He reached out and touched his forehead, brushed his short hair, and said to Gu Xian. Gu Xian was not convinced, but Gu Junjian had already said so. Moreover, he was no longer a child. He had been Gu Yunjian's father for so many years. How could he not understand Gu Junjian? Gu Junjian never turned back once he did something. Knowing this, Gu Xian did not intend to continue arguing. Bang! Just as Gu Xian had calmed down and was about to go home with Gu Junjian, he heard the sound of a heavy object being slammed to the ground. Gu Xian and Gu Junjian both turned to look at the same time. Shen Jia, who had just stood up and wiped the cement on his face with a napkin and had just regained his sight, was kicked to the ground again by Ce with a hard kick, causing a loud thud to resound in the air. Ce's kick sent Shen Jia flying, the bones in his body crackling. Shen Jia did not expect that Ce did not follow Yun Jian back to the house to teach him a lesson. At this moment, Shen Jia had been kicked to the ground. He did not even have time to react. However, the bones in his body were still making cracking sounds. In the next second, Shen Jia's painful howl resounded through the sky. Ah! My leg! Ah! The cracking of bones was enough to prove that the bones in Shen Jia's leg were broken. Ce had broken his leg with a single kick. Everyone present was shocked by Ce's ferocious actions. Especially Gu Xian and Gu Junjian. She had just seen Ce standing beside Yun Jian without saying a word. What happened in the end? Just as Yun Jian helped Qin Yiru into the house, Ce was even more ruthless than Yun Jian. He kicked Shen Jia's foot so hard that the bones in his foot were broken. The sound of bones cracking could be heard. Just as everyone present was looking at Ce in shock, they saw Ce raise his long legs and walk unsteadily towards Shen Jia, who had been kicked to the ground and was hugging his leg as he howled in pain. You! What are you doing? Gu Xian and Shen Jia's other two friends saw Ce walking towards them. The moment they thought of Ce's actions, they felt their hair stand on end. Now that Ce was walking towards them, they retreated in fear. Ce didn't say a word. He walked straight to Shen Jia and bent down slightly. He reached out his bony hand and grabbed Shen Jia's collar. With this grab, Ce actually pulled Shen Jia up from the ground. Ah! You! What are you doing? Shen Jia was sweating profusely after a few seconds of pain. He stared at Ce as if he was looking at a ferocious beast. How dare you touch my mother-in-law? Do you think I'll let you off? A murderous look flashed across Ce's sharp eyes. He curved his handsome face and curved his lips. There was an undeniable ruthlessness on his face. Shen Jie was in so much pain that his entire body was trembling. His abdomen, which had been kicked by Yun Jian, was still hurting. He wasn't joking. Right now, Ce was like a king who looked down on all living beings. His tall posture and his flamboyant words did not feel out of place at all. Chapter 892. Shen Jie didn't expect Ce to be so calculative. In the past, Shen Jie was always the one who bullied others, and there was no reason for others to bully him. Moreover, people like Shen Jie liked to form cliques. When they were studying abroad, they formed a gang, and it was equivalent to the kind of gang that was formed to fight with others. Therefore, under such circumstances, Shen Jie felt that he had a lot of face. Therefore, when he kicked Qin Yiru, his foppish character was revealed. When he kicked Qin Yiru, he used all his strength. However, Shen Jie didn't expect that Ce would actually attack him. Moreover, he was so ruthless that he didn't even have a chance to fight back. Under Ce's pressure, Shen Jie had no choice but to lower his head. He was so scared that his whole body was trembling. Then he said, "I was wrong. I can apologize." Shen Jie felt that his legs were about to be crippled. He had never met people like Ce and Yun Jian. The former had just beaten him up, and Qin Yiru had stopped her from killing him. However, the latter had broken his bones with one kick. He had only kicked Qin Yiru a few times. If Shen Jie had known that this would happen, he probably wouldn't have attacked Qin Yiru. Frankly speaking, he wouldn't have dared to do it even if he was beaten to death. However, this time, Ce didn't care about Shen Jie. In front of Gu Xian and Gu Junjian, he grabbed Shen Jie's collar and kicked Shen Jie's abdomen fiercely. This was enough to break all the bones in Shen Jie's body. Shen Jie howled as he was sent flying. After he landed heavily, he lay on the ground in the distance and didn't make any more noise. He wasn't dead, he just fainted. Shen Jie, Gu Xian and Shen Jie's other two friends saw this and rushed over in fright. *CK, Gu Xian cursed. Then he ran over as well. After Ce kicked Shen Jie, he wasn't worried about Shen Jie's life at all. Instead, he walked into the house. His tall figure walked in the drizzle and soon disappeared in front of everyone. In any case, Shen Jie was his brother, so Gu Xian and two other people helped Shen Jie to the hospital. Gu Junjian didn't follow him. After giving Gu Xian some instructions, Gu Junjian returned to his room. Hence, Gu Xian drove the unconscious Shen Jie to a nearby hospital. The gathering at Gu Yunjian's house this time was very unpleasant because of Gu Xian's return. Therefore, no one ate much at dinner. Of course, except for Adam, Mo's son, and a few others. At night, Yun Jian and the others returned to Dong Ruan's villa. The next day, when Yun Jian woke up and came back from her morning run, Qin Yiru had already gone to Gu Yunjian's house to prepare breakfast for Gu Xian. Gu Junjian had gone to the army. Qin Yiru was a kind person. She was afraid that Gu Xian wouldn't eat breakfast alone at home, so she hurried over to prepare breakfast for Gu Xian. Yun Jian was afraid that Gu Xian or his friends would cause trouble again. So Yun Jian took 2 pieces of bread that Qin Yiru had prepared for her and walked towards Gu Yunjian's house, as if she was taking a stroll. At the entrance of Gu Yunjian's house, Yun Jian met Gu Xian, who had just come out of the villa. The moment Gu Xian saw Yun Jian, he snorted coldly and wanted to walk around Yun Jian. "Stop!" Yun Jian didn't turn around to look at Gu Xian. She just snorted softly. Hearing Yun Jian snort, Gu Xian just snorted and wanted to walk around Yun Jian. How about a race? As a racing enthusiast, you should be very interested in racing. If I can beat you, you're not allowed to be so rude to my mother in the future, Yun Jian said when she saw Gu Xian walk around her. She wasn't angry. Yun Jian's words really stunned Gu Xian. Chapter 893. Gu Xian's face was full of surprise. Racing was a symbol of wildness. At the same time, in foreign countries, especially in Gu Xian's school, men who could race and drive well would be regarded as extremely manly and charming by girls. Like the wind, Gu Xian and several of his buddies also became obsessed with racing. During his school days, Gu Xian was extremely obsessed with racing. It could be said that he was obsessed with it to a whole new level. Racing itself was exciting and dangerous. Perhaps in the beginning, Gu Xian and the others followed the trend to learn how to race. But it was undeniable that Gu Xian and the others were indeed obsessed with racing later. However, his interest in racing was not even mentioned to his own father, Gu Junjian. How did Yunjian know? Gu Xian originally intended to ignore Yunjian, but when he heard Yunjian's words, he was stunned on the spot, so he hurriedly turned around and asked. Yunjian slowly crossed her arms in front of her chest. She appeared relaxed, but did not speak immediately. Just when Gu Xian thought that Yunjian would not speak, Yunjian's voice suddenly sounded. Your sports car has been modified, right? Yunjian's words were not a question, but an affirmative tone. It was only then that Gu Xian turned back to look at his sports car, that was parked not too far away at Yunjian's words. Then he looked at Yunjian in a daze and nodded. Yes. After being stunned, Gu Xian was puzzled again. How do you know that my sports car has been modified? And you didn't get close to my sports car to observe how? Gu Xian had just finished asking when he was interrupted by Yunjian. I accidentally saw it last night. Anyone with a discerning eye can tell at a glance that it has been modified. Yunjian paused for a beat before she continued. You're right. Why would a normal person think of modifying a sports car? What's more, I saw a lot of scratches on your sports car. Unless you are a racing enthusiast, unless it is a sports car, how could it be modified like this by you? Yunjian's explanation made Gu Xian speechless, but it turned out that Yunjian's words were all reasonable. Ahem. Gu Xian coughed softly. He obviously did not expect his stepmother's daughter to be able to see this. Could it be that a girl like her also liked racing? Ahem, you are a girl. Do you also like to study these things? Gu Xian was suddenly interested in Yunjian. He changed his attitude of ignoring Yunjian and immediately asked Yunjian. Of course, he was only interested in this kind of curiosity towards his sister at most. However, Gu Xian did not notice the change in his mentality at all. However, Gu Xian still did not believe that Yunjian knew how to drive a race car. After all, Yunjian was still underage. At 16 years old, she was still considered a minor in Z country and could not get a driver's license. How could she start school without a driver's license? Unless she was a genius. Otherwise, who would have the ability to do so? Yunjian saw that Gu Xian did not believe her, but she was not angry. She put down her arms and reached out with her left hand to lift her high ponytail that fell on her chest. Yunjian's way of lifting her hair was different from a little girl's. Her arrogant look made even Gu Xian's eyes pop out of their sockets. But Gu Xian's eyes simply lit up. Chapter 894. Yunjian's words seemed to cause an uproar in Gu Xian's ears. What did she mean by his sports car being modified to the point of being unsightly? Gu Xian was an upright man. He thought of something and asked on the spot. What do you mean by my sports car being modified to the point of being unsightly? As Gu Xian spoke, he had already followed Yunjian's words and ran aggressively to his sports car. He circled his car left and right before shouting at Yunjian. My car is a famous car personally modified by America's top mechanic, Master Corentin. How can it be unsightly? The Master Corentin that Gu Xian mentioned was a top mechanic in America. Even in the entire mechanic industry, Corentin was a well-known figure. Legend had it that it was very difficult to get Corentin to modify something. This was because even money wasn't tempting enough to get Corentin to modify something. One had to be someone with international status to be qualified to negotiate with Corentin. The sports car in Gu Xian's hands was bought from someone else. Therefore, Gu Xian cherished the sports car very much. To Gu Xian, owning this sports car was even more exciting than getting Corentin's autograph. Moreover, Corentin enjoyed a certain amount of international authority. Gu Xian had no doubts about Corentin at all. But today, Yunjian actually said in front of him that Corentin's modified works were unsightly? Didn't she know? International racers all wanted Corentin to modify a sports car for them. But the number of people who could actually be modified by Corentin could be counted on one's fingers. Didn't she know that if her words were heard by some people with ulterior motives, it would cause public outrage? Yun Jian heard Gu Xian's indignant voice, but Yun Jian only raised her eyebrows slightly when she heard Gu Xian's words. Seeing Yun Jian's reaction, Gu Xian thought that Yun Jian had heard of Corentin's name. Gu Xian was also a person who cared about his reputation. He thought that Yun Jian was dumbfounded by his words, so he raised his head somewhat arrogantly. Look, his car was modified by Master Corentin. Yun Jian would probably admire him for being able to get a sports car modified by Master Corentin. After hearing that, Gu Xian looked at Yun Jian with his mouth slightly agape. Gu Xian looked forward to seeing Yun Jian look at him with admiration or envy. However, what Gu Xian saw was Yun Jian's eyelids flashing and her eyebrows slightly raised. Then he heard Yun Jian say, "So it's a sports car modified by that old man Corentin? This car is probably the trashiest of all his modified sports cars." Yun Jian made a tsk sound as she spoke. Gu Xian was completely stunned when he heard Yun Jian's words. Yun Jian's way of addressing him? Plus Yun Jian's words. You know Master Corentin?" Gu Xian looked at Yun Jian in disbelief. Corentin was an eccentric person. It was said that there were very few people who could get close to him internationally. Gu Xian only heard of one person who was very close to Corentin. Hearing Yun Jian call Corentin an old man, why did it feel like she knew Corentin? Gu Xian looked at Yun Jian with great anticipation. She actually knew Master Corentin. However, he heard Yun Jian's soft voice. Just a defeated opponent. Chapter 895. Yun Jian's tone was ostentatious, but there was an arrogance that could not be ignored. However, for some reason, Gu Xian did not think that Yun Jian was joking. "Master Corentin was defeated by you? Are you sure?" Gu Xian exclaimed. After that, Gu Xian asked again to confirm. "Don't tell me you don't know who Master Corentin is? He's the best mechanic in the world. Whether it's a sports car or any other mechanical equipment, there's nothing he doesn't know how to do as long as it's unheard of. I don't mean to criticize you, but you haven't even met Master Corentin before, have you? Why would you say that Master Corentin was defeated by you?" Gu Xian exclaimed in surprise. Yun Jian did not follow Gu Xian's words. Instead, she changed the topic and asked Gu Xian, "Do you admire Corentin a lot?" After being asked by Gu Xian indeed changed the topic. "We race car enthusiasts admire him a lot because the cars he modified are twice as fast as ordinary sports cars and race cars." Gu Xian looked into the distance in admiration and said, if Gu Xian looked down on Yun Jian before, then at least Gu Xian knew that Yun Jian knew about racing. After all, if it was someone who did not know about racing, they would definitely not be able to tell that his sports car had been modified. Therefore, Gu Xian and Yun Jian started chatting unknowingly. He even said in a regretful tone, "Sigh, if I can get Master Corentin to modify another Maserati sports car for me, I'll have no regrets." Gu Xian's tone carried a hint of a sigh. Everyone knew that Corentin was an eccentric old man. He would not help you modify a sports car even if you paid for it. Unless you made him happy, he would modify it for free. Gu Xian's sports car had been in the hands of many people. By the time he got his hands on it, it was already an old car that had been driven by many people. However, this was a car modified by Master Corentin, so Gu Xian would rather drive this old car than replace it. Yun Jian stood where she was and cast a sidelong glance at Gu Xian as she continued, "As long as you get the Maserati modified by Corentin, you'll be more respectful to my mother?" Yun Jian knew that Qin Yiru didn't want Gu Xian to disappear. Qin Yiru was kind-hearted, and Gu Xian was not a bad person. That was why Yun Jian negotiated with Gu Xian. This was the third time he heard Yun Jian negotiate with him, and it was all for Qin Yiru. Gu Xian blinked. He didn't directly answer Yun Jian's question. Instead, he asked Yun Jian somewhat enviously, "You and your mother must have a good relationship, right?" In Gu Xian's impression, his mother would only dress up gorgeously and fool around, only coming home in the middle of the night. His mother had never cared about him. Yes. Yun Jian nodded. Gu Xian's red, yellow, blue, and green hair didn't match his somewhat lonely image at all. "That's great." Gu Xian sighed deeply. The envy in his tone didn't diminish at all. As Guxian spoke, he walked away somewhat dejectedly. This time, Yun Jian didn't stop Guxian. After taking 2 steps, Guxian turned his head to look at Yun Jian. He chuckled, but this laugh wasn't at Yun Jian, but at himself, who was lonely. I won't scold your mother anymore. As Guxian walked, he lowered his head and continued. Master Corentin is an internationally famous big shot. Until now, no one has been able to invite him. The only person who could possibly invite Master Corentin couldn't possibly be Yun Jian. Chapter 896. Guxian felt that since he was already so lonely, there was no need for him to make others feel the same way. Besides, Qin Yiru had rushed over so early in the morning to make breakfast for him. It was impossible for Guxian not to be touched. After all, even Guxian's own mother had never cooked for him. Guxian also found a bit of motherly love from Qin Yiru. So you don't have to think of a way to hire Master Corentin, said Guxian. With that, he laughed self-deprecatingly and turned to get into his sports car. Then he started the engine and stepped on the gas pedal to leave. It was not that Guxian looked down on Yun Jian, but because Corentin was an internationally famous big shot. Moreover, Corentin was a weirdo in the mechanical world. If you wanted to hire him, you couldn't use money. He would only do it if he liked the person. Moreover, out of 1,000 people, there wasn't a single person that he liked. Therefore, Guxian was not looking down on Yun Jian's words, but he instinctively did not believe her. In the end, Yun Jian was still standing in the same spot when Guxian drove away. Yun Jian stood in the same spot and smiled slightly. After a while, she took out her phone from her trouser pocket and dialed a number that she remembered in her mind, but had never taken the initiative to call. Beep beep beep. After 3 rings, the call did not go through. The ringtone rang for almost half a minute. Just as the ringtone was about to end, the call was suddenly picked up. Hello. A very lazy, old man's voice in pure English came from Yun Jian's phone. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes. She knew that this phone number was Corentin's private landline. Most people did not have Corentin's private landline number. Old man, please do me a favor. Yun Jian spoke into the phone in English very decisively. How dare you call this old man an old man? Who are you, little girl? Corentin was annoyed when he heard Yun Jian's address. He immediately opened his mouth angrily. Even through the phone, Yun Jian could feel that the other party was holding a landline with a childish expression. He was frowning at the landline and pretending to be angry. I'm SS. Yun Jian paused in the middle of her words. Then she softly spat out a letter. After Yun Jian spat out the letter, she clearly heard the sound of a chair being flipped over from the other end of the phone. On the other end of the line, when Corentin heard the word SS, he wanted to stand, but unexpectedly, his leg exerted force and hooked onto his own chair. The chair was hooked and was accidentally kicked over by his own foot. Corentin fell to the ground along with the chair. However, the pain to him, the word SS. Corentin got up from the floor and crawled to the phone he had accidentally flung away at the fastest speed in his life. He trembled as he picked up the phone. Then he used the most benevolent voice he could muster and said, You, why are you calling me? No, are you planning to take me in as your disciple? Yun Jian had never called Corentin on her own accord. The reason Corentin believed that Yun Jian was SS, just because of what she said, was because other than this unknown number, the people who knew his number were all people he knew. Of course, Corentin had saved the phone number of someone he knew. Country Zhejiang Province's Longmen City. Call me back when you've arrived. I won't wait for you if you're late, Yun Jian said with a faint smile. SS was the abbreviation for her by the people in the underworld. Chapter 897. Yun Jian did not give a direct reply to Corentin's words. Instead, it was Corentin who sounded flattered. All right. I'll fly my private helicopter over tonight. Wait for me. You must wait for me. Yun Jian pressed her lips together lightly and hung up. Not many people knew that she was slaying God, the top secret agent in the secret agent ranking. Even international tycoons and top figures rarely knew about her identity. knowing Corentin under the identity of slaying God had a history as well. Yun Jian had thought that she would not need Corentin's private number when he had forced it on her. But she did not expect to use it so soon. It was fortunate that she had memorized Corentin's number when she saw it back then. Otherwise, she would not have been able to reach him. After making the call to Corentin, Yun Jian turned to enter Gu Yunjian's villa. Yun Jian headed to New Cruz after meeting up with Qin Yiru. Recently, New Cruz had been planning to expand the company to all major regions in the country through franchising. Of course, New Cruz's headquarters was in Longmen City, and this would not change. What was franchising? It was when a brand was established, selling their products to the entire country by collecting franchising fees. Those who applied for franchising had to follow the headquarters in the renovation of their storefronts and the management model. New Cruz was still planning this, so Yun Jian had been visiting the company more frequently recently. There were some things that Zhang Jifan could not do, so Yun Jian had to do it herself. It was Saturday night. Yun Jian had promised Chen Sini to have dinner at her house, and she would not go back on her word. Moreover, Yun Jian wanted to check on Chen Sini's condition. Yun Jian had gone to Zhang Xiaofeng's house the last time. She had also arranged to meet Zhang Xiaofeng at his doorstep. After Yun Jian was done with New Cruz's matters, she went straight to Zhang Xiaofeng's house. Zhang Xiaofeng had been waiting for Yun Jian at his doorstep for quite some time. It was only when a silhouette came from afar that he waved frantically. "Master." When Yun Jian heard the greeting, she knew it must be Zhang Xiaofeng without thinking. Hence, Yun Jian went to Zhang Xiaofeng. Beside Zhang Xiaofeng was a chubby Zhang Jian. Zhang Jian was rubbing his head as he greeted Yun Jian cutely. "Grandmaster." Yun Jian grinned and said, "Let's go." Zhang Jian had carried Chen Sini to the hospital and was considered to have saved her life. Hence, he was naturally invited to Chen Sini's house for dinner. In reality, Chen Sini's father, Chen Jinchuan, had not only invited Yun Jian and the rest. Chen Sini had just recovered from a serious illness, while Chen Jinchuan was a businessman. A businessman should know how to do business. This kind of thing could be used as a pretext to invite some of his business partners over for a meal and talk about business, which was very good. Hence, when Zhang Xiaofeng brought Yun Jian and the rest to Chen Sini's house, they saw a few tables of food. Chen Sini's leg was not injured to begin with, so she could walk normally. Chen Sini's face was only slightly pale due to excessive blood loss. The most important thing for Chen Sini now was to replenish her blood composition. Yun Jian and the rest walked into the house and saw Chen Sini sitting at one of the tables, looking a little unhappy. In addition to Chen Sini, there were several other young men and women around the same age as Chen Sini sitting at the table. However, Yun Jian did not know any of them. Chapter 898. Yun Jian heard Chen Sini's shouts once she entered and saw Chen Sini waving at her, beckoning her over. "Looks like we're late. The dishes are almost all here." Zhang Xiaofeng lamented before he headed over with Yun Jian and Zhang Jian. "We're not late at all. It's fine as long as there's food." Zhang Jian added gluttonously as they walked. In return, Zhang Xiaofeng rolled his eyes and smacked him from top to bottom. "Look at you, you're so useless." As Zhang Xiaofeng and Zhang Jian spoke, both of them followed behind Yun Jian. Jian, I've snatched this seat especially for you. Come over quickly." Seeing Yun Jian coming over, Chen Sini waved her hand quickly, as if she was afraid that the seat she had snatched would be snatched away by someone else. "TSK, you heartless Chen Sini. You didn't even snatch a seat for us." Zhang Xiaofeng teased. Then the group sat down. There was a group of people sitting at the tables next to them. Only Yun Jian's table was filled with children. In reality, this was how it was usually arranged. The adults sat with the adults while the children sat with the children. Sometimes, the children's table would have their mothers with them. Yun Jian glanced around her table and saw that there were a few women at the same table as her. Of course, most of them were young men and women. It was not hard to tell that some of them were brought here by their mothers to attend the dinner. Be it the children or the women, they must have come with their fathers or husbands. Their fathers or husbands were also seated at the same table as Chen Sini's father, Chen Jinchuan. Seeing Yun Jian and her friends coming over, Chen Jinchuan, who was seated at the same table as himself, stood up. In any case, he would not forget that he was treating his daughter today because she had just recovered from a serious illness. Chen Jinchuan would never forget that the reason why his daughter could stand here alive was because Yun Jian, Zhang Xiaofeng, and Zhang Jian had saved her in time. You guys are here? Chen Jinchuan walked over to Yun Jian and the others with a wine glass in his hand. Yun Jian could tell that Chen Jinchuan's question was directed at her, so she nodded in response. Sorry for the inconvenience, haha. Chen Jinchuan laughed twice, and then continued to speak to Yun Jian. Thank you very much. Sini, you have to entertain your friends on my behalf. Chen Jinchuan said with a smile. Got it, Dad. Chen Sini nodded. Jinchuan, is this your Sini? Because Chen Jinchuan walked over, everyone's gaze turned towards him. At this moment, at the same table as Yun Jian and the others, a woman in her 40s with a twisted face asked Chen Jinchuan. Obviously, this woman knew Chen Jinchuan. Haha, that's right, this is my Sini. Chen Jinchuan said this and laughed twice. Jinchuan, I heard that Baiguang Model Agency has been banned from the industry. Also, the genitals of those talent scouts have been cut off. One of them even had 2 fingers chopped off. Did you do this, huh? A man seemed to want to show off, so he used this matter as a topic to bring it up again. Chen Jinchuan was stunned, and then he replied, I didn't do it. I can't say for sure that Baiguang Model Agency was banned, but those talent scouts' genitals were cut off. I heard that a few girls who escaped said that a young girl chopped off 2 fingers of one of the talent scouts and ordered people to cut off their genitals. I don't know if this is true. Someone added, Master, I remember that you were the last to leave. Did you do that? Zhang Xiaofeng heard the noise and asked Yun Jian. Chapter 900. Ever since Yun Jian had appeared, she had always given people the impression that she was a woman of few words. Therefore, when Zhang Guodong pointed at Yun Jian, and Yun Jian retorted in such a tone, everyone present felt a sudden sense of novelty. However, before everyone could react, Yun Jian's words drifted over again. Are you my biological mother or my biological father? Why should I report these things to you? Besides, would you believe me if I told you? Yun Jian's words had hit the nail on the head. First, who was Zhang Guodong? Who was he to her? Why should she report her own matters to him? Second, would he believe her if she told him? The answer was no. Besides, Zhang Guodong himself had said that last time when they were talking about the Baiguang Model Agency being banned, Yun Jian had said that she was the one who did it. However, from Zhang Guodong's tone just now, everyone present could tell that he definitely didn't believe Yun Jian. Yun Jian's few words had made Zhang Guodong speechless. Zhang Guodong's spirit had been completely destroyed by Yun Jian's sharp words. But he still held back his anger and planned to find a chance to fiercely retaliate against Yun Jian next time. Alright, stop talking. Let's eat. Chen Jinchuan saw that the situation wasn't right, so he immediately tried to mediate. After all, he was the one who invited Yun Jian and Zhang Guodong to dinner. His original intention was to repay Yun Jian for saving Chen Sini's life. However, if Yun Jian quarreled with Zhang Guodong, wouldn't it become a bad thing instead of repaying her kindness? Under such circumstances, Chen Jinchuan naturally had to step in and stop them. Here it comes. The last dish is here. Everyone try it. These dishes were all made by me. At this moment, Chen Sini's mother, Hishiya, walked out of the kitchen. Hishiya was followed by several nannies. At this moment, the nannies were serving dishes to each table. Tonight's dinner was prepared by Hishiya. Although Hishiya looked like a well-bred young lady, she had actually learned how to cook. The dishes she made were comparable to the chefs of 4-star hotels. However, after Hishiya married Chen Jinchuan and gave birth to Chen Sini, she rarely cooked. Today, Hishiya cooked because she wanted to repay Yun Jian and the others with sincerity. My mom's cooking is delicious. Jian, eat it and ignore those lunatics. We'll eat our own food. Chun Sini had disliked Zhang Guodong for a long time. Hearing Zhang Guodong treat Yun Jian like this, she was not angry at all. That's right. Master, have a taste. Zhang Xiaofeng also shouted. Yes. Yun Jian smiled and nodded. At the same time, Zhang Jian, who was beside them, could not close his mouth. Just as Yun Jian finished 2 prawns, someone came through the door late. Upon closer inspection, it was Ling Yichen. Ling Yichen's father was a family friend of Chun Sini's father, so it was not unusual for a playboy like him to show up here. However, it had been a while since Ling Yichen had appeared in front of Yun Jian and her friends, because he was preparing for a competition. In addition, Ling Yichen was not in the same class as Yun Jian and her friends, so Yun Jian had not seen him for a long time. Hey, you guys have already started eating. I'm late, haha. Ling Yichen said as he ran toward Yun Jian and her friends. You actually have time to spare? Zhang Xiaofeng wanted to tease everyone he met. Chapter 901. Haha, great beauty Chen just got discharged today. How can I not do her the honor? Ling Yichen said as he walked up to Zhang Xiaofeng. Then, he squeezed into Zhang Xiaofeng's side and snatched half of Zhang Xiaofeng's stool. F***ck you kid? Zhang Xiaofeng was very unhappy that half of his stool had been snatched away. He continued to shout, Kid, you snatched my stool the moment you arrived. Scram to the side. Go get your own stool. Haha. Ling Yichen laughed heartily. Then, he turned to look at Yun Jian, who was sitting on his seat, and greeted. Hey, Yun Jian, long time no see. Yun Jian replied with a simple smile. Ling Yichen? While Ling Yichen was happily fighting for a stool with Zhang Xiaofeng, a girl sitting at the same table looked at him and called out in surprise. Hey, you're a Mr. Ling. Who was calling him? Ling Yichen turned his head around impatiently. However, when he saw the girl's face clearly, he was completely dumbfounded. Shasha? Ling Yichen asked in surprise. This time, Zhang Xiaofeng was interested. He lifted his butt and took the opportunity to push Ling Yichen, who was snatching his seat, out of his stool. Because Ling Yichen was stunned just now, he was directly pushed out of half of his stool by Zhang Xiaofeng. Seeing that Ling Yichen and this girl called Shasha had acknowledged each other, Yun Jian was not at all interested. She continued to peel the prawns in her hands. These prawns were delicious. Ling Yichen did not expect to bump into Shasha here at all. He was a little stunned. This girl called Shasha was called Ji Shasha. She was Ling Yichen's ex-girlfriend. Speaking of Ling Yichen's love affairs, he really had a lot of them. He was the famous playboy in school. Before this, he changed girlfriends like he changed clothes. However, after meeting Yun Jian and the others, he completely restrained his temper. Right now, the school was abuzz with rumors that Ling Yichen had actually curbed his playful personality. This was simply untrue. The thing Ling Yichen was most afraid of right now was meeting his ex-girlfriends. Coincidentally, he actually met one today. While Ling Yichen was still in a daze, the boys and girls beside Ji Shasha surrounded her and asked her questions. Shasha, who is this person? You guys know each other? That's right. Sasha, do you know them? The people at the same table surrounded Ji Shasha and asked. It felt as if Ji Shasha was being praised to the heavens. On the other hand, Ji Shasha herself was quite pretty, so she felt like she was floating in the air. My friend, Ji Shasha said arrogantly to the people around her. Then, she turned to look at Ling Yichen and invited him. Ling Yichen, we haven't seen each other in a while. Shall we go shopping together later? Ji Shasha's gaze was as if Ling Yichen did not want to go shopping with her, it meant that he did not dare to go. Ling Yichen was silent for 2 seconds, then agreed. Okay. The more the merrier. Bring your friends along, and we'll go together. Ji Shasha continued to say to Ling Yichen. However, at this moment, Ji Shasha's gaze was on Yun Jian. Beautiful girls always like to compare themselves with other girls. Ji Shasha was also such a girl. Moreover, Yun Jian was pretty. The boys and girls on Ji Shasha's side also joined in the commotion. Especially the boys on Ji Shasha's side. Their eyes were almost transfixed on Yun Jian. Chapter 902. Yeah. Let's go and have some fun. Ji Shasha added. When Ling Yichen heard that, he immediately turned to ask Yun Jian and Zhang Xiaofeng. Are you guys coming? Actually, when Ling Yichen looked at Yun Jian and Zhang Xiaofeng, he looked like he was asking for help. He actually didn't want to go with Ji Shasha, but her tone made it sound like he didn't dare to go if he didn't go. Ling Yichen admitted that he was a person who cared a lot about his reputation. Hence, based on this point alone, Ling Yichen had to go. He was a man. Who was he afraid of? Wasn't it just an ex-girlfriend? Wasn't it he who dumped her back then? Sensing Ling Yichen's pleading gaze, Yun Jian continued peeling the prawns and eating as she answered. I'm fine with anything. Her hands were covered in greasy prawn oil, but Yun Jian didn't care. If Master goes, I'll go, Zhang Xiaofeng quickly replied. If Grandmaster goes, I'll go, Zhang Xiaofeng said, mimicking Zhang Xiaofeng's words. Puffed. The moment Zhang Xiaofeng and Zhang Jian finished speaking, Ji Shasha couldn't help but laugh. After Ji Shasha stopped laughing, she even used her hands to cover her face, as if she was trying to hide her ugliness. Master? Grandmaster? You guys still want to have a master? Ji Shasha turned to Yun Jian and smiled. Other than comparing with each other, if two girls became friends, they would also like to pair up with each other. For example, if she knew a guy, she would like to find a partner for her friend. Of course, in 1999, such things weren't as common as now, but it was undeniable that such things still existed. Hence, other than comparing her beauty with Yun Jian at first sight, Ji Shasha also wanted to become friends with Yun Jian, because this way, in other people's eyes, she would be a beauty, and her friends would be beautiful too. This kind of concept took root in the hearts of young girls like Ji Shasha. Isn't that so? This is my master. Zhang Xiaofeng didn't care about Ji Shasha's disdain towards them. On the contrary, he proudly introduced Yun Jian to Ji Shasha. Of course, there's no one in this world who's more powerful than my grandmaster, Zhang Jian added. After listening to Zhang Xiaofeng and Zhang Jian's words, Ji Shasha and the others felt some disdain in their hearts, but she pretended to be very respectful on the surface. Of course, Ji Shasha and the others only took the matter of Yun Jian accepting Zhang Xiaofeng as her disciple and Zhang Jian as her grand disciple as a joke. Students in school often like to become sworn brothers, or between students of the same grade. You call me grandpa, I'll call you grandma. Of course, there were also master and disciple relationships. However, it was rare for two big boys to take a girl as his master, and the other to call her grandmaster. However, the people present only felt that the words master and martial ancestor were merely titles. This kind of master-disciple relationship was probably just to get closer to the other party, as if they had a very good relationship with the other party. That was all. How could there be any real skills that could be taught to a master and disciple or grand disciple? What skills could Yun Jian teach Zhang Xiaofeng and Zhang Jian? This was simply impossible. In any case, she, Ji Shasha, didn't believe that Yun Jian had any real skills that could be taught to Zhang Xiaofeng and Zhang Jian. Young people usually ate faster, so Yun Jian's table finished eating very quickly. Of course, the other tables didn't eat so quickly, especially the adults led by Chen Jinshuan. Other than eating, they had more important things to do, which was to chat about business. Even after eating, they would chat for at least 2 to 3 hours before leaving. Chapter 903. Right after dinner, Ji Shasha took the lead and asked Ling Yichen to bring along Yun Jian, Zhang Xiaofeng, and the other two to go shopping. Chen Xinyi had just recovered from her illness. She had just been saved not too long ago, so of course, she could not run around as if nothing had happened to her. To be honest, Chen Xinyi was still under observation. Although she was discharged from the hospital, she could be in danger at any time. Therefore, it was not appropriate for her to go shopping under such circumstances. It was obvious that Chen Xinyi would not go. Jian, I'm so bored at home. Why don't you stay and keep me company? Chen Xinyi pulled Yun Jian back when she saw that Yun Jian wanted to go with them, and looked at her pitifully. Once Ling Yichen heard that Chen Xinyi wanted to keep Yun Jian, he dashed over to snatch the girl away. Ling Yichen actually admired Yun Jian, and wanted to take Yunjian out, so that she could stand up for him. Once he recalled how Ji Shasha betrayed him, and got together with another guy, because he was not as good as the other guy, he was filled with rage. Since Yunjian was so capable, Ling Yichen wanted Yunjian to go with him to back him up. Cinny, let Yunjian go shopping with us. Heh. I'll bring you candied haws when I come back. Ling Yichen tempted Chun Cinny with delicious food. TSK, I don't want to. Chun Cinny turned her head away, but her hand was still gripping Yunjian's wrist tightly. I only want Yunjian to stay with me, Chun Cinny said matter-of-factly. Then 10 candied haws? Ling Yichen continued to tempt her. Just when everyone thought that Chun Cinny was firm in her views, she agreed to Ling Yichen's terms without hesitation. Deal! Yunjian's lips twitched, but she still flashed a smile that did not lose her aura. Was she not as important as food to Chun Cinny? Alright, let's go. Heh. Ling Yichen said as he beckoned everyone to set off together. Ji Shasha also revealed a smile that could be considered good or bad. Then they walked out of the gate and headed towards the downtown area near Chun Cinny's villa. There was also a downtown area near Chun Cinny's house. Moreover, there were many food stalls and vendors near the busy streets. Especially in this downtown square, there were many aunties twisting their butts and dancing in the square. The atmosphere on the square could be said to be quite harmonious. This downtown area was quite lively, especially the noisy square dance, which simply brought the atmosphere here to the climax. There's a lot of fun games over there. There's also a lot of delicious food. Let's hurry over and take a look. Ji Shasha walked at the front. As she spoke, she led everyone to the most lively place. Ji Shasha took 2 steps in that direction before she seemed to remember something. She turned around and ran to Yunjian, reaching out to hold Yunjian's wrist as if they were best friends. There's a lot of fun games over there. There's even a game of shooting, archery and darts. Let's go take a look. Ji Shasha said as she reached out to hold Yunjian. However, before Ji Shasha's hand could touch Yunjian's wrist, Yunjian had already dodged it discreetly. I don't like other people touching me, Yunjian said coldly and arrogantly as she dodged Ji Shasha's hand. Chapter 904. Hearing Yunjian's words, Ji Shasha's face stiffened. Ji Shasha was covered in perfume, so Yunjian felt disgusted just by smelling it. Of course, Yunjian would not directly tell Ji Shasha something like, "Get lost. I hate the perfume on your body." It was just that Yunjian was not willing to interact with Ji Shasha. Seeing Yunjian speak to her with such an attitude, Ji Shasha froze, and even rolled her eyes at Yunjian. However, Ji Shasha could not throw a tantrum in front of everyone. She only saw Yunjian as a cold girl, so she was stunned for a moment. Then, she smiled at Yunjian again and said, let's go play over there then. As if to ease the tension, Ji Shasha even flashed a smile at Yunjian. When the boys saw Yunjian speak to Ji Shasha like that, they had a good impression of Ji Shasha's actions. At that moment, they all thought to themselves, this Ji Shasha sure has a good temper. Not only is she beautiful, but she also has a good temper. However, Yunjian was not bad either, because Yunjian was prettier and more exquisite than Ji Shasha. Yunjian was the kind of girl who could not be found lacking at all. Moreover, Yunjian did not use rouge or face powder, but her skin still looked tender. This made everyone's hearts itch. Therefore, even though Yunjian had said those words just now, the boys felt that Yunjian was much better than Ji Shasha. Let's go play games. It's boring to stay here. The boys also joined in the commotion. Thus, the group walked towards the gaming area at the plaza. Other than a group of aunties dancing in the plaza, the gaming area was right next to it. Speaking of the gaming area, one had to mention the balloon shooting game. How did Ling Yichen meet Yunjian back then? They had met during the school's autumn outing, when they won a prize by shooting balloons in the park. Back then, Ling Yichen was still a little conceited, thinking that he was very good at shooting balloons. However, after meeting Yunjian, he realized that the worst thing he did was to act like a big shot in front of Yunjian. In the end, he was slapped in the face. Let's go play balloon shooting. You boys should be very good, right? Get a big doll for us girls. Ji Shasha saw that Yunjian was ignoring her, So she turned around and held another girl's hand in hand. Ji Shasha's words made several of the boys present roll up their sleeves. They wanted to show off in front of the girls to show off their prowess. Go away, go away. Leave this to me. Among them, the one who had called Yun Jian a babe and jeered the loudest. The one with a crooked nose, but dressed fashionably, took a glance at Yun Jian before going up to show off his skills in front of the girls. In this balloon shooting game, you could shoot balloons with guns, darts, or even shoot balloons with arrows. In short, as long as you could shoot balloons within the set number, you would win the prize. Of course, it was actually quite difficult to shoot a gun. Moreover, some shop owners had tampered with the guns. Even if the gun was aimed at the balloons, it would not hit. The boy with the crooked nose was called Zhang Chungrui. He even struck a pose that he thought was very handsome, then glanced at Yun Jian from the corner of his eye. Just then Ling Yichen's voice was heard. Yun Jian, do you want to go shoot a few shots too? Cindy is still hiding the big doll you gave her last time. If you give her another one, she'll be even happier later. It was actually very difficult to win a balloon shooting game like this. It was even harder to get a big doll. Chapter 905. Zhang Chungrui had just raised the toy gun in his hand. He wanted to show off his skills in front of the girls by holding the toy gun and aiming at the balloons. Then, he heard Ling Yichen say that Yun Jian had hit a big doll before. When they heard that Yun Jian had hit a big doll before, everyone present was slightly stunned. Since the shop owner relied on this to make money, then the game he set up must be difficult. In other words, it was basically impossible to hit all the balloons and win the big doll. Unless the person was really good at playing with guns, darts, or archery, there was no way they could win the big doll. A guy like Zhang Chungrui could at most show off in front of everyone. In reality, he had no ability at all, let alone hit the balloons with a toy gun. Even if he was given 100 chances, he might not be able to hit the big doll. What's more, what Ji Shasha said earlier was merely lip service. Hence, everyone's eyes were glued to Yun Jian. You really hit a big doll before? Wow, you're amazing. When Ji Shasha saw that Yun Jian was the center of attention, she quickly walked over to Yun Jian. After taking 2 steps, Ji Shasha stopped. She did not hold Yun Jian's hand again, but her obvious goodwill was obvious to everyone present. Ha, what a hypocrite! When he saw Ji Shasha walk over to Yun Jian, Zhang Xiaofeng obviously snorted. However, Zhang Xiaofeng did not make it too obvious. Ji Shasha did not hear Zhang Xiaofeng snort at all. She was still standing beside Yun Jian, feeling everyone's attention. Ji Shasha stood beside Yun Jian, wanting to mislead everyone into thinking that she was very close to Yun Jian. This way, all the gazes that were sizing up Yun Jian would shift to her. Seeing that Yun Jian was ignoring her, Ji Shasha did not change her mind. She continued to shout at Yun Jian. Since you're so good, can you give me a big doll? I really like that big teddy bear over there. Can you bring it down for me? Ji Shasha was still pretending that she was very close to Yun Jian, but at this moment, she felt more and more eyes on her. Therefore, Ji Shasha was rather pleased with herself. Not interested, Yun Jian directly rejected Ji Shasha's pleas. She didn't even look at Ji Shasha. Ji Shasha was filled with resentment toward Yun Jian for that. She actually ignored her words again and again. Who did she think she was? Ji Shasha was so angry that she almost exploded on the spot. But for the sake of her image, she held back. Just when the atmosphere was at its peak, Ling Yichen's voice was heard again. I heard from Cindy last time that she wanted a big teddy bear. She can pair it up with the big rabbit from last time. Just as Ling Yichen finished speaking, Yun Jian was already standing in front of the balloon shooting game. She took out some loose cash and handed it to the shop owner, then said softly, darts. Ji Shasha, who was standing at the side after being rejected by Yun Jian, saw Yun Jian's actions. Her existence was the most awkward. Just now, when she wanted Yun Jian to beat up a teddy bear for her, Yun Jian directly told her that she wasn't interested. In the end, when Ling Yichen said that Chen Sini wanted it, Yun Jian went to pay for it without another word. Whether Yun Jian could win the teddy bear or not, Ji Shasha felt that she had formed a grudge with Yin Jian. Chapter 906. Ji Shasha glared at Yin Jian. She bit her lip with her front teeth, and the force she exerted was enough to prove that she hated Yin Jian to the core. However, Ji Shasha's expression was still very friendly. Wait! Ji Shasha's voice suddenly rang out just as the shop owner handed the dart to Yin Jian, and Yin Jian was about to reach out for it. Yin Jian paused, and her hand also stopped. She had long seen through Ji Shasha's character, and now she wanted to see what tricks Ji Shasha had up her sleeves. Thus Yin Jian stopped. She stood in front of the balloon shooting grand prize stall with her arms crossed. Yin Jian's aura was very good to begin with. Moreover, her appearance was outstanding. Not only did she look tall and slender, but more importantly, her face was cold and arrogant yet had the delicate features of a young girl. Everyone present couldn't help but look at her. At this moment, Yin Jian's aura was top-notch. It was something that people like Ji Shasha couldn't even compare to. What? Yin Jian spat out a slow and frivolous tone with a hint of laziness. Ji Shasha couldn't help but gulp. However, she continued to show her signature smile and said, Zhang Qingrui, aren't you pretty good at shooting, darts and archery? Coincidentally, Ling Yichen's friend is pretty good too. Why don't the two of you compete? Hey, I think a simple game is too boring. The two of you should compete. That's more exciting, right? Ji Shasha couldn't help but provoke. Guys loved excitement. Actually, girls loved excitement too. However, as long as they weren't the ones being watched, who wouldn't want to watch others do exciting things or compete? Thus, just as Ji Shasha finished speaking, Ji Shasha and Zhang Qingrui's group of friends started to jeer again. That's right, that's right. The two of you should compete. We're all watching. Hee. Someone said to Yin Jian and Zhang Qingrui. That's right. Pretty girl, you should compete with Zhang Qingrui. The fact that you got the big doll before means that you're really lucky. Isn't that the saying that luck is also a kind of ability? Zhang Qingrui knows how to shoot, and shoot. You should compete with him. If you can beat Zhang Qingrui, we'll give it to you. Although Yin Jian had gotten the big doll before, it was only once. Ji Shasha's friends naturally wouldn't think that Yin Jian had practiced. After all, Yin Jian was still young and she was a girl. Which girl would practice marksmanship, darts and archery? Therefore, everyone thought that Yin Jian was lucky to have won the prize back then. Ling Yichen was inwardly gleeful when he saw the questioning gazes of the people around them. Ling Yichen was planning to let Yin Jian teach them a lesson later. At that moment, Zhang Qingrui, who was asked to compete with Yin Jian in shooting, darts or shooting, looked at Yin Jian eagerly. He even pretended to be cool as he flipped his short hair. His smug expression was hard to ignore. Although Zhang Qingrui had never won the big doll, he was still an expert at shooting balloons. Coupled with the praises of the people around him, he really thought that he was amazing. At the same time, he naturally thought that Yin Jian had won the big doll because of Yin Jian's luck. After all, luck was also a kind of ability. Chapter 907. Zhang Qingrui said this with a confident tone, as if he was really invincible. Oh, when the surrounding people heard Zhang Qingrui's indirect confession, they all cheered. Hey, 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 for a moment. Young people liked to jeer, and of course, Ji Shasha's group of friends were the same. What's more, some students in the school liked to do the most was to pair up. When they were paired up, they liked to act as matchmakers and help others get paired up. Zhang Qingrui, don't tell me you liked the girl from the first time you saw her. You were just trying to hit on her. After a boy finished jeering, he started to tease Zhang Qingrui. Boys like to kick up a fuss, especially when a boy confessed to a girl. If there were friends standing around, then his friends would definitely exaggerate and kick up a fuss. Although Zhang Qingrui had just gotten to know Yin Jian, and it was considered a bet, everyone was observant and could tell that Zhang Qingrui was interested in Yin Jian at first glance. If you ask me, Zhang Qingrui is such an outstanding person. He's not bad looking and has a good family background. Pretty girl, I think you should just say yes to him. Say yes to him, and we can hang out together in the future. Isn't that great, right? Haha. Another guy spoke up for Zhang Qingrui. The way he called her pretty girl made Yun Jian uncomfortable all over. She didn't know why, but she just didn't like this atmosphere. Not only did she not like it, but she also hated it. When he heard his brother speaking up for him, Zhang Chungrui forgot about the bet he had previously thought of. He looked at Yun Jian with deep affection. Yun Jian's looks were indeed outstanding. She was the most outstanding in both appearance and temperament. That face without any makeup was as smooth and delicate as a newborn baby. It made people itch when they looked at it from afar. Such a beauty, if he could get his hands on her. Bah! You're really a toad lusting after a swan. Are you worthy of my master? Little guy, it's morning. Stop dreaming. Zhang Xiaofeng was disgusted by Zhang Chungrui's words. He looked at Zhang Chungrui and said angrily. Zhang Xiaofeng's words made Zhang Chungrui want to strangle Zhang Xiaofeng to death. If it weren't for the fact that he wanted to establish a good image in front of Yun Jian, Zhang Chungrui would have rushed up and fought with Zhang Xiaofeng. TSK, what toad lusting after swan meat? You better show me some respect. Otherwise, I'll make you leave crying. Although Zhang Chungrui didn't make a move, his tone wasn't pleasant either. Just as Zhang Xiaofeng was about to roll up his sleeves and fight with Zhang Chungrui, Yun Jian's cold voice sounded. I agree to bet with you. Yun Jian's cold voice was devoid of any warmth. Everyone's hearts tightened slightly. Yun Jian agreed to Zhang Chungrui's bet. However, based on the current situation, Yun Jian would definitely lose. After all, Zhang Chungrui was really capable. What about Yun Jian? She was just lucky the last time. Everyone present automatically thought that Yun Jian was lucky to win the big doll. So when they heard that Yun Jian agreed to the bet with Zhang Chungrui, could it be understood that she was indirectly agreeing to be Zhang Chungrui's girlfriend? Just as everyone thought of this, even Zhang Chungrui himself thought so. Yun Jian's voice sounded again. She said to Zhang Chungrui, Chapter 908. How ruthless. If Zhang Chungrui lost to Yun Jian, he would have to kneel down and kowtow to Yun Jian 3 times, and call her ancestor. If Zhang Chungrui really kneeled down and kowtowed to Yun Jian 3 times, and called Yun Jian ancestor, Zhang Chungrui would probably lose all his dignity and face. Everyone present took a deep breath, and turned to look at Yun Jian. Yun Jian's words were something that no one present expected. Even Ling Yichen, Zhang Xiaofeng, and Zhang Jian, who were watching the show from the side, were slightly shocked. Not only did Yun Jian agree to the bet, but she also wanted Zhang Chungrui to kowtow to her 3 times if she won? Wasn't this a little too ruthless? However, before anyone could think about it, Yun Jian's words came again. She said to Zhang Chungrui in a provocative tone, How about it? Do you dare to bet with me? Yun Jian's tone sounded as if everything was under her control. It was as if Zhang Chungrui was bound to lose. At that moment, even Zhang Chungrui couldn't help but take a deep breath. After he calmed down, he remained silent for a while. If he went back on his word and didn't bet with Yun Jian, it would destroy the masculinity that he had just built up. For a moment, Zhang Chungrui really didn't know how to choose. That's all you have. Yun Jian scoffed and said softly. Yun Jian's mocking words directly provoked Zhang Chungrui's morale. If Zhang Chungrui did have the intention to give up on the bet with Yun Jian, then at that moment, Zhang Chungrui was completely instigated by Yun Jian. Why wouldn't I dare to bet? Zhang Chungrui said loudly. After a pause, he continued to look at Yun Jian from head to toe and said, Little beauty, you said it yourself. If you lose, you have to be my girlfriend. You can't go back on your word. Zhang Chungrui looked at Yun Jian with an evil gaze, which made Yun Jian very unhappy. Yun Jian didn't say whether she agreed or not. She continued to urge, Do you want to go first or should I? Of course I'll go first. Zhang Chungrui pretended to be a man and stretched out his arms to show off his muscles. But in fact, he didn't have any muscles at all. As he spoke, Zhang Chungrui had already arrived in front of the balloon shooting game stall, under the cheers of the boys. Then let's compete in darts? Zhang Chungrui saw Yun Jian holding darts in her hand, so he smiled slyly. She had heard from Ling Yichen that Yun Jian had gotten a big doll from shooting. Now that they were competing in darts, Yun Jian wouldn't know how to do it, would she? When he thought about how he only needed to pop a few more balloons than Yun Jian, to be able to have the beauty in his arms. Zhang Qingrui felt his body become restless. Good luck, you guys. Ji Shasha, who was standing far away, smiled, but she had other thoughts in her mind. Good luck, good luck. Master, you can do it. Zhang Xiaofeng shouted, not to be outdone. Grandmaster, you can do it. You're the best. Let him see your amazing skills. Zhang Jian also followed up with a shout. Bang! At that moment, Zhang Qingrui had already popped the first balloon with the first dart in his hand. Zhang Qingrui broke out in cold sweat when he popped the first balloon, but he still looked at Yun Jian very proudly. His gaze was as if he was gloating that he had popped the first balloon, as if he would definitely win. Chapter 909. Zhang Qingrui saw that Yun Jian didn't intend to pay attention to him, but he wasn't angry. Instead, he put on an expression that said, just wait and see. Then, he took the dart and threw it again with full concentration. Bang! The sound of a balloon being punctured was heard again. At this time, sweat gathered on Zhang Qingrui's forehead. Every time Zhang Qingrui threw a dart, his hand trembled. It had to be said that Zhang Qingrui's hand trembled more and more as the dart went on. After all, the first and second dart might be able to hit the balloon. But if he didn't have confidence in himself, what if one of the dart flew wrong and couldn't puncture the balloon? Of course, Zhang Qingrui and Yun Jian were competing to see who could puncture more balloons. If neither of them reached 15 dart, and each dart punctured a balloon, then it would depend on who could puncture more balloons. But what if Yun Jian really hit every dart? This was what Zhang Qingrui was afraid of. If Yun Jian hit every dart, and was really lucky, then wouldn't he really have to kowtow to Yun Jian 3 times, and call her ancestor in public? No, this was impossible, and he couldn't. He still wanted to save face. For the next dozen or so dart, Zhang Qingrui developed quite well. He actually punctured more than a dozen balloons. This kind of dart could fly 15 dart in total. However, when Zhang Qingrui threw the 13th dart, he suddenly lost control of his hand, and threw a dart that didn't hit the balloon. This miss scared Zhang Qingrui. He swallowed a few mouthfuls of saliva, and his hand couldn't help but shiver. Come on, Zhang Qingrui. I believe you can do it. Zhang Qingrui's buddy next to him cheered for Zhang Qingrui. Zhang Qingrui tried to calm down after being cheered by his buddy. After calming down, Zhang Qingrui took 2 deep breaths, and then he threw the last 2 dart in succession. Bang bang! The 2 dart punctured the balloon, and made the sound of the balloon being punctured. Phew! Zhang Qingrui breathed a sigh of relief. Then, he stretched out his hand and swung it. Only then did he look at Yun Jian. Little beauty, it's your turn. Zhang Qingrui teased. There were a total of 15 darts, and he hit 14 of them. That was to say, he had punctured 14 balloons, and only 1 balloon had not been hit. This kind of result should be considered to be in the upper echelons of the number of people who won the balloon shooting game. Right? Zhang Qingrui, you're amazing. Too powerful. Ji Shasha couldn't help but speak first. As she spoke, Ji Shasha looked at Ling Yichen provocatively. Actually, Ji Shasha was competing with Ling Yichen. Zhang Qingrui really thought that he was very powerful. He touched his head, but didn't forget to remind Yun Jian. Little beauty, I'm looking forward to your performance. As he spoke, Zhang Qingrui still had a feeling that he was determined to win. When Zhang Xiaofeng, Ling Yichen, and Zhang Jian saw this from afar, they did not panic at all. At the same time, Yun Jian extended her arms and held the 15 darts in each of her hands. Almost at the same time, she divided the 15 darts into 7 for her left hand and 8 for her right hand, holding them separately in both hands. F***CK, what's she doing? Is she going to throw 15 darts at the same time? Is she stupid? How low is the hit rate if she throws 15 darts at the same time? It's impossible to hit the target. Someone analyzed in a low voice. However, halfway through his analysis, Yun Jian had already thrown the darts in her hands. 15 darts were shot out at the same time. Everyone present was slightly surprised. However, just as everyone present thought that there was no chance of winning if all 15 darts were shot at the same time. Chapter 9-10. 15 darts flew out from Yunjian's hands. She threw the darts with both hands at the same time. The 15 darts were like a curved arc as they flew out at the same time. Not long after, a piercing sound was heard. 15 darts flew out at once. Everyone present widened their eyes and looked at the scene in front of them in disbelief. For a moment, the surroundings were extremely quiet. Other than the sound of the square dance march not far away, everyone who had witnessed the scene just now looked over in shock. To be precise, they were looking at Yunjian. You. Zhang Qungrui was so shocked that he could not speak. He had long been shocked by the way Yunjian threw the darts. He stuttered but could only say you in the end. Zhang Qungrui was stunned. Ji Shasha was even more dumbfounded. She originally wanted Yunjian to lose, but she did not expect Yunjian to win. Not only did she win, but she also threw all 15 darts and won in the shortest time possible. The 15 darts were held in both hands. How did Yunjian manage to throw all the darts out at once? Most importantly, she was able to make each of the darts puncture the balloons. It had to be said that Yunjian's move just now was too terrifying. It had completely overturned everyone's understanding. Even the shop owner was dumbfounded. The shop owner's mouth was still agape, and he looked like he could not react for a long time. She won just like that. Hee boss, she won. Shouldn't you give us the big bear doll? Ling Yichen went to the front and looked at the shop owner with a grin. He even reached out his hand to ask for it. Yunjian had already paid for the balloons. Moreover, with so many people watching, the shop owner could not go back on his word. The shop owner took the big teddy bear from his stall and handed it to Ling Yichen in the end. Ji Shasha watched as Yunjian really hit the big bear doll. Her face was full of envy. Then, Ji Shasha watched as Ling Yichen took the big bear doll and hugged it in his arms. Ji Shasha was extremely envious. Ling Yichen, can you give this big teddy bear to me? Ji Shasha shamelessly asked Ling Yichen for it. She did not care if the teddy bear belonged to Yunjian. It was in Ling Yichen's hands anyway. Back then, when Ling Yichen and Ji Shasha were still a couple, he would buy everything for Ji Shasha and treated her extremely well. However, Ji Shasha ran away with another guy because she despised Ling Yichen for not being as good as the other guy. Ji Shasha thought that since they were boyfriend and girlfriend in the past, Ling Yichen would probably give the big teddy bear to her, right? F***ck get lost. Who wants to give it to you? It's Yunjian's. Ling Yichen did not even look at Ji Shasha as he cursed. Ji Shasha was stunned. She had never heard Ling Yichen swear at her before. However, it was also at this moment that Yunjian's voice rang out again. I've won. It's time for you to honor your words. Her words were directed at Zhang Qungrui. Zhang Qungrui suddenly remembered that he had promised Yunjian. He immediately bit his lip. Hey, I was just joking just now. Little beauty, you were joking too, right? What kind of relationship do we have now? Let's just forget about what happened just now. Zhang Qungrui made up a bunch of nonsense. Yeah, we were just joking just now. I think we should just forget about it. Immediately, a guy stood up for Zhang Qungrui. Forget about it. Yunjian frowned. If she was the one who lost today, Yunjian was sure that Zhang Qungrui would force her to honor her words. You don't want to admit it? Yunjian looked at Zhang Qungrui with a murderous glint in her eyes. Just as Zhang Qungrui was about to say something, he suddenly felt a voice in front of him. In the next second, he felt someone kick him from behind, and he fell to the ground with a thud. Chapter 9-11. Startled by Yunjian's sudden action, everyone present was taken aback. It was inevitable that Zhang Qungrui would not keep his word. Boys and girls who were in puberty had to kneel down and kowtow to others. They also had to call them ancestors. No one would be happy to do such a thing, especially a boy like Zhang Qungrui, who cared about his reputation to the extreme. Previously, when he hit on Yunjian in front of her, Zhang Qungrui was holding on to the fact that Yunjian was beautiful. If he could successfully make Yunjian his girlfriend, then he would be particularly magical in front of his classmates and friends. In this way, his reputation would be very big. Moreover, when he agreed to bet with Yunjian, Zhang Qingrui felt that he would not lose. Even if he lost, he felt that he would not keep his promise. At most, he would just find an excuse. What kind of bet would there be? This matter would definitely be over just like that. However, who would have thought that when Zhang Qingrui and his group once again tried to use their previous methods to casually fool Yun Jian's original words as a joke, Yun Jian would actually do such a shocking thing. She actually went directly behind Zhang Qingrui, stretched out her leg, and stomped on Zhang Qingrui's back, forcing him to kneel down. Girls were generally very reserved, especially in front of boys. Even the most irritable girls would become reserved. However, look at Yun Jian. She made a bet with Zhang Qingrui, but Zhang Qingrui did not keep his word after losing. She directly stepped on Zhang Qingrui's back in front of so many people. She even said something like, "If you don't keep your promise today, I will make sure you won't see the sun tomorrow." Was this still the attitude a girl should have? Ouch! Zhang Qingrui was forced to kneel on the ground by Yun Jian. He suddenly felt that he had lost all his face, so he struggled to stand up. However, Yun Jian's foot seemed to weigh 1,000 pounds. It was like a huge rock, oppressing him to the point that it was difficult for him to even breathe. "You little beauty, you are too much." A boy around saw it and pointed at Yun Jian. This boy was the one who helped Zhang Qingrui to get Yun Jian to agree to be Zhang Qingrui's girlfriend. F***ck, how did my master go overboard? Today's bet was brought up by your people first. My master is only asking you to fulfill your promise. How is this going overboard? I think it's you guys who can't afford to lose. Zhang Xiaofeng quickly spoke up for Yun Jian. Exactly. If you can't afford to lose, then why do you still want to compete with my grandmaster? You guys are really shameless. Zhang Jian also took advantage of the situation and said, "You, the boy who spoke for Zhang Qingrui, just now was no match for Zhang Xiaofeng and Zhang Jian." Zhang Xiaofeng and Zhang Jian stopped him with a few words. "Are you going to kowtow? Are you going to shout or not?" Yun Jian stepped on Zhang Qingrui's back, forcing him to lower his head even more. "You, aren't you going too far? How can we girls be like this?" Just then, Ji Shasha's voice sounded weakly from the side. Ji Shasha's words were directed at Yun Jian. However, when these words came out of Ji Shasha's mouth, why did it sound like she was blaming Yun Jian for being rude and not behaving like a girl at all? Before anyone could think about it, they saw Yun Jian stepping on Zhang Qingrui's back, and with a fierce kick, she forced Zhang Qingrui to kowtow to the ground, making a bang sound. "If you don't kowtow, I'll help you." Yun Jian ignored Ji Shasha's words. At the same time, she lifted her foot, and when Zhang Qingrui's body bounced back, she ruthlessly kicked him again. Chapter 9:12. As Yun Jian spoke, she lifted her leg. Just as Zhang Qingrui's body was about to bounce back, she stomped down again. Just like that, Zhang Qingrui's head was knocked to the ground again and again. Each time, there was a loud thud. "It's fine if you don't shout, but I'll make you kowtow 1,000 times." Yun Jian laughed coldly. As she spoke, she used this repeated position to make Zhang Qingrui kowtow a few more times. 1,000 times? Wouldn't Zhang Qingrui's head be smashed? Everyone present couldn't help but suck in a deep breath. Zhang Qingrui's head was smashed to the ground again and again, making a series of loud noises, which made everyone's hair stand on end. Don't! Zhang Qingrui was already dizzy from the kowtowing. He struggled with all his might, and even reached back to pull Yun Jian's foot off his back. However, he couldn't even touch Yun Jian. "I'll beg for mercy. I'll talk. Zhang Qingrui could even feel that his forehead was bleeding. He was so scared that his soul almost left his body. He quickly begged Yun Jian for mercy. "Speak." Although Yun Jian stopped making Zhang Qingrui kowtow, her foot was still on Zhang Qingrui's back. After seeing Yun Jian's methods, Zhang Qingrui didn't dare to play any tricks. He still wanted to live. Thus, Zhang Qingrui swallowed a mouthful of saliva. His forehead hurt from the kowtowing. He didn't want to endure it anymore, so he mustered up his courage and called out softly, "Ancestor! Ancestor!" His voice was as soft as a cat's meow. Can you hear what he said? Yun Jian turned her head and looked at Zhang Xiaofeng, Zhang Jian, and Ling Yichen. Her red lips curled up. It was so beautiful that it made people's hearts itch. Ah, what did he say? Master, I can't hear him. Zhang Xiaofeng reached out to dig his ears. He pretended that he didn't hear anything, but he was secretly laughing in his heart. Did he say anything? Did someone speak just now? Martial ancestor. I only heard you talking. Zhang Jian also helped to add on. Ling Yichen was trying so hard to hold back his laughter that he was about to suffer internal injuries. He raised his hand into a fist and placed it by his mouth, coughing softly. Ahem. I didn't hear anything either. Ling Yichen lied without batting an eyelid. We all heard it. Why are you the only ones? One of Zhang Qingrui's brothers stood up and spoke for Zhang Qingrui. Just as he said that, Zhang Qingrui screamed again. Yun Jian raised her foot and kicked Zhang Qingrui's forehead to the ground, making a bang sound. I can't hear what you're saying. I'll give you one last chance. If you don't make a sound, I'll take it that you want to kowtow to me 1,000 times, Yun Jian said eerily. Then she added, Of course, I'd prefer it if you kowtowed to me and admitted your mistake. As she spoke, Yun Jian made Zhang Qingrui hit the ground again, making loud bangs. No, I'll talk. Zhang Qingrui was forced into a corner by Yun Jian. Finally, he could not hold it in anymore and cried out in a half-sob. Just as Zhang Qingrui said that, a rich and magnetic male voice came from the side. Xiao Jian, you're still so soft-hearted. Chapter 9:13. The moment they saw the man, all the girls' hearts began to race. They saw Ce slowly walking towards them. His steps were steady, but they were mesmerizing. Ji Shasha, who stood where she was, watched as Ce appeared and made his way to her slowly. She felt as if her heart was about to melt, as if she had found her first love. Ji Shasha even had this thought in her mind. Will this man who suddenly appeared walk towards me? The answer was no. Ce walked around Ji Shasha and the others. He wasn't the least bit attracted by the girls who were looking at him with reverence. Furthermore, he didn't even look at these girls. His black eyes only reflected a proud figure from the beginning to the end. That beautiful figure, her voluptuous figure, and her every move were enough to make him unable to let go. Why are you here? Yun Jian didn't loosen her grip on Zhang Qingrui's back, but she was still talking to Ce. If I didn't come, how would I be able to kill these flies who want to steal my woman? As Ce spoke, he had already arrived in front of Yun Jian. As Ce spoke, he stretched out his leg and viciously stepped on Zhang Qingrui's palm, causing him to toss and turn. Ah, you. It hurts. You. Zhang Qingrui had already planned to call Yun Jian ancestor, in exchange for not being tortured. However, he never expected that Ce would suddenly appear after Yun Jian agreed to let go. Ce didn't care who he was. He walked over and stepped on the back of Zhang Qingrui's palm without saying a word. The piercing pain caused Zhang Qingrui to curl up into a ball. Ancestor, I'm calling you ancestor. Please let me go. Please let me go. Zhang Qingrui was in so much pain that he broke out in cold sweat. At the same time, he couldn't stop himself from shouting. At this moment he was calling out ancestor quite smoothly. Now that Yun Jian had achieved her goal, she let go of his foot. In spite of it, Ce refused to budge even when Yun Jian had stopped. Ce stepped on the back of Zhang Qingrui's hand, a hint of disgust appearing on his handsome face. You can prepare to die now. Ce was no doubt more ruthless than Yun Jian. If one were to ask why, it was because Yun Jian had more concerns than Ce. Yun Jian's family in Longmen City was a family. This kinship was not easy to come by. It was something Yun Jian had yearned for 2 lifetimes. Ce had no qualms at all, so it was fine when he did not make a move, but once he did, he was going to kill his opponent. It was just that for Yun Jian, Ce held himself back. However, it didn't mean that he would let these people who wanted to steal his woman. Ji Shasha was envious from afar. Why did such a handsome guy appear out of nowhere and turn out to be Yun Jian's man? Why? As Ji Shasha pondered, she plucked up her courage and took 2 steps towards Ce. Hey handsome, he's my friend. Can you let him go? Ji Shasha winked at Ce as she spoke. Ji Shasha was rather confident in her looks, and did not think that she was worse than Yun Jian. It was her first time seeing someone as handsome as Ce. Ji Shasha's eyes were glued to him, and she could not think of anything else. Ji Shasha was indignant when Ce ignored her. She reached out to touch Ce and said, "Handsome, do me a favor." She even stuck out her tongue playfully. She then continued, "He's my friend. Can you?" Ji Shasha did not notice that Ce's brows were furrowed into a line. When Ji Shasha was only half a meter away from Ce, the latter suddenly released his foot from Zhang Qingrui and raised it to kick Ji Shasha's abdomen, sending her flying a few meters away. At the same time, he spat out a few words coldly. "You're right. You're right." Chapter 9:14. Ji Shasha was sent flying a few meters by Ce's kick. The moment she was kicked in the abdomen, Ji Shasha felt like she was about to throw up her breakfast. Within a few seconds, Ji Shasha was heavily smashed to the ground. Her body trembled twice, and then there was no sound. Really? Someone was going to be beaten to death. That was the only thought in everyone's mind at this moment. Ah, pain, pain, pain. I was wrong. I'm not human. I was wrong. Please let me go. I didn't know she was your woman. I won't dare to do it again. Please. Zhang Qingrui's begging voice sounded again. However, Ce had already stepped on the back of Zhang Qingrui's hand. Kacha! Kacha! The sound of Zhang Qingrui's finger joints breaking could be heard. In the next second, Zhang Qingrui fainted from the pain. It was only then that Ce retracted his leg. There was a tinge of seriousness on his handsome face that was completely different from before. "Emo-san, drag him to feed the dogs." Ce tilted his head. His flawless face made everyone's heart beat uncontrollably. However, the words that came out of Ce's mouth made everyone tremble. It was only when Ce opened his mouth that everyone noticed a person standing not too far away. Emo-san was standing in his original position with his hands behind his back. His handsome face paled in comparison to Ce's, but compared to the group of boys present, it was a piece of cake. Because of Ce's appearance, Emo-san didn't stand out at all. When everyone present reacted, they realized that there was a similarly handsome man standing there. After the man walked over, he picked up Zhang Qingrui, who was lying on the ground half dead, and dragged Zhang Qingrui, and quickly disappeared from the place. Even if he didn't die, Zhang Qingrui would suffer a fate worse than death. Furthermore, from Ce's tone, it seemed like he wanted to kill Zhang Qingrui to relieve the hatred in his heart. After the unconscious Zhang Qingrui was dragged away by Emo-san, Ji Shasha was helped up from the ground, trembling in fear. She was scared half to death. Zhang Qingrui was being fed to the dogs? Is this true or false? But whether it was true or not, it was enough to scare Ji Shasha out of her wits. Ce walked over to Yun Jian, while everyone was still in shock. At the same time, he reached out to grab Yun Jian's hand, and left without saying a word. Hey master, wait for us." Zhang Xiaofeng saw that Yun Jian had been pulled away by Ce, so he hurriedly followed them. Unexpectedly, Ce turned her head and gave him a cold look. His eyes seemed to say that if Zhang Xiaofeng dared to follow him, Ce would chop him into pieces. Under Ce's gaze, Zhang Xiaofeng felt his scalp go numb. He trembled violently, and finally swallowed a mouthful of saliva. He even slapped his lips and said, "I think we should just stand here." That's good." Zhang Xiaofeng's reaction made Zhang Jian and Ling Yichen not dare to follow them. Thus, the three of them stood there and waited for Yun Jian to return. Yun Jian wouldn't leave by herself, and Ce wouldn't leave directly with her either. Thus, Zhang Xiaofeng and the other two continued to wait in place. Ce pulled Yun Jian and disappeared from everyone's sight. However, he only pulled Yun Jian into a small thicket. The moment they entered the thicket, he reached out and hugged Yun Jian. That magnetic male voice with a hint of breathlessness came from above. "You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.